Chapter 144. Luo Jingying's face alternated between green and white. Wasn't it obvious that the clothes she had carefully selected were not as good as Sun Yijia's old clothes? At this moment, she really hated the two people in front of her. Little sister, I forgot that third sister-in-law and third sister are fated to be together. After all, this man, you are both. Slap. Ah, Luo Jingying screamed. You lowly slave, how dare you hit me? She reached out to hit back. However, she had to see who was the one who hit her. Nanny Gong grabbed her wrist. I'm just telling fourth young lady that you can't eat this thing carelessly, and you can't speak carelessly. Prince Rue won't let you off. Luo Jingying shouted fiercely. Nanny Gong smiled awkwardly. Prince Rue? How awe-inspiring. Fourth young lady, do you know that sometimes, if you speak carelessly, it won't be as simple as a slap. It can cost your life. Luo Jingying's eyes flashed with panic. What do you want? I'll tell you. Then I'll also tell you that this is the Luo family, and you are still the fourth young lady of the Luo family. You lost your chastity before marriage and brought shame to the family. You are still alive now because Master and Madam are merciful. What made you think that it was Prince Rue who saved your life? The fox also knows that when the tiger is around, it will support you. Right now, you are just a pitiful worm with no one to rely on. What right do you have to gossip about your sister and sister-in-law? Meeting Nanny Gong's sharp eyes, Luo Jingying found it difficult to breathe, let alone struggle. Moreover, was the matter of losing one's chastity before marriage known to everyone? That biased old granny you. She couldn't bear to see her living well? Would she only be happy if she ruined her reputation? Perhaps it was rare for her to be quick-witted. She looked at Jingwan as if she was dipped in poison. Is this the servant you raised well? How dare you offend your superiors? Jingwan looked at Luo Jingying with a smile. Offend my superiors? What kind of superiors are you? Your mother doesn't even take you seriously, and you still want me, your sworn enemy since young, to take you seriously? Jingwan's smile gradually faded. In fact, you still dare to step into my courtyard. Your courage is commendable. Nanny, throw her out. Since Jingwan spoke, Nanny Gong was more impolite. She grabbed Luo Jingying and dragged her out. Of course, she said, of course. Nanny Gong, with the other hand, scratched Nanny Gong's. Nanny Gong used to be a secret guard, and she was younger than she was now. As long as she wanted, she could carry Luo Jingying as if she was a chick. Luo Jingying's resistance was like a worm in her eyes. As for scratching, Luo Jingying screamed again. She only felt that the bones in her wrist were about to be broken. Luo Jingying cursed loudly. Not only Nanny Gong, but Jingwan was also cursed by her. Naturally, Nanny Gong would treat her even more coldly. Then, outside Begonia Elegant House, Nanny Gong really threw her out without hesitation, because at that moment, Luo Jingying's whole body was off the ground. Luo Jingying fell hard, but Nanny Gong knew what to do, so it was not very serious. After all, she had seen Luo Jingying's reaction before. If she was really pregnant and something happened to her here, it would not be good for her reputation. That's right. Nanny Gong was not worried about explaining to Prince Rue at all. That's right. In Nanny Gong's opinion, if something really happened, Prince Rue would think of a way to deal with it. If he kept her in the dark and schemed against her, he would naturally take responsibility. Sun Yijia looked in the direction of the courtyard gate. She can't see the situation clearly at all. Even if she enters Prince Rue's mansion, how long can she live? She looks like she's sick in the head. She's probably delusional. Although Sun Yijia did not know what delusional disorder was, she miraculously understood at this moment. Jingwan sometimes wondered, was Luo Jingying infatuated with Prince Rue, or was it purely because of his power? Prince Rue was also handsome and elegant. That face, other than Prince Jean, was probably one of the best among all the princes. More importantly, he had a good temper. According to the rumors, he was cultured and refined. Moreover, he was very gentle and considerate towards Princess Rue. Under certain circumstances, for many unmarried ladies, this kind of man was actually a big killer. If he had the intention to get close to Luo Jingying, no, as long as he had the intention to seduce those unmarried ladies, those who would not be charmed by him should be very few. After all, those unmarried ladies, even if they had a mother who was a top expert in domestic combat and learned some good skills in domestic combat under the influence of others, they were still mostly clueless about the matters between men and women. If there was a man like Prince Rue, who had all kinds of excellent conditions and was a veteran in the field of romance, deliberately plotting against them, most of the young ladies in their teens would be hooked up. That being said, Luo Jingying should be infatuated with the powerful Prince Rue. If Prince Rue only had excellent external conditions or the title of prince, it would be strange for Luo Jingying to take the initiative to stick to him. Luo Jingying clearly saw Jingwan's attitude. It really was not the least bit lenient. Moreover, she was not sure if she was really pregnant. If something happened to her, she would be distressed to death. Therefore, she did not dare to make a fuss. "You lowly servant, why aren't you helping this lady up?" However, the servant girl just pursed her lips and looked at her. She had no intention of going forward at all, because she had just heard something terrible. The fourth young lady was actually... How could a lady from a noble family be so shameless? She even wanted her to help her up. It would dirty her hands. Moreover, this kind of thing, if not done properly, she would lose her life. Luo Jingying waited for a long time. As a result, the servant girl looked at her as if she was looking at something dirty. She was burning with anger. Seeing that more and more people were surrounding them, Luo Jingying was ashamed and angry. She endured the pain and got up. However, she endured it and did not attack the servant girl again. She also did not think about who to seek justice for her. It was not that her mother did not take her seriously. Who could seek justice for her? She knew that Luo Jingying, that bitch, was thick-skinned than the city wall. Why did she foolishly come to her? It was just that monstrous hatred was like thousands of ants gnawing at her heart, making her almost crazy. Luo Jingying looked at her wrist. It was red and swollen. Moreover, the pain coming from inside was even more intense. Just moving her fingers slightly made her unable to stop herself from hissing and sucking in cold air. Such a sorry figure was seen by the servants who were passing by. Even they felt that Luo Jingying's brain had a hole. No matter what kind of marriage the third young lady had, as long as she was still in the Luo family, she would be the most honorable lady in the Luo family. Moreover, no matter how bad Jin Qinhuang's reputation was, the third young lady would still be the most honorable Wang Fei after marrying over. No matter how she was in Jin Qinhuang Fu, outside, she would still be respected by everyone. How could an insignificant concubine like you compare to her? As for whether or not the third young lady would be cursed by Jin Qinhuang, no one could make wild guesses about something that had not happened. That's right, the entire Luo family knew that Luo Jingying was going to enter Rue Wang Fu as a concubine. From the beginning, old Madame Luo had never thought of hiding it. Because this kind of thing simply could not be hidden. Once she entered Rue Wang Fu, Prince Rue would also make it known to everyone and announce his close relationship with the Luo family. Since that was the case, there was no need to hide it. No matter what, she was still a young lady of the minister's Fu. With her grandfather's support, it was the time to choose a good marriage. Even if it could not be one of the best families, it was completely fine if it was one of the worst ones. There was a long line of people waiting for her to choose. Laoi's body looked very healthy and he could still sit on the position of Minister of Personnel for many years. Thus, when she married into the husband's family, she would be held in high regard. In the end, she was going to enter the Wang Fu as a concubine and be a lowly concubine. Anyone who heard this would find it inconceivable. Even if she was going to be a concubine, she could at least be a secondary concubine. However, she was completely inferior. Moreover, she was not even of marriageable age yet, but she was already so impatient. Anyone with a brain could guess that there was something fishy going on. The young people might not know the specifics, but the older people were, the more experienced they were. They all chuckled in their hearts. When they thought about how fourth young lady had been sick again during this period of time, they basically knew what was going on. However, this kind of thing could only be tacitly understood. Even if they were gossiping, they had to distinguish between different things. Otherwise, they would be sold. In such a situation, the smart one should curry favor with third young lady, and then curry favor with Lei Oi and old madam. Then, with Lei Oi's support, after entering the Wong Fu, she would at least have a 30% chance of success. Even if there was an unresolvable enmity between her and third young lady, she should tuck her tail between her legs and behave herself. However, the reality was exactly the opposite. She even dared to find trouble with third young lady. Speaking of which, Sun Yijia was in a bad mood recently because of Jingwan's marriage. In the Luo family, she could not vent her anger on other people, but she did not need to be polite to Luo Jingying at all. As more and more fine brushwork books were published, Luo Jingbua seemed to be even busier. Not only did he have to busy painting and continue to organize the books, but there were also more and more banquets outside. Naturally, he did not have so much time to accompany Sun Yijia. Fortunately, Sun Yijia did not care. Although the people around her were worried that Luo Jingbua would be seduced by the little vixen outside, after all, when those scholars gathered together and asked for prostitutes to accompany them, it was said to be elegant. Even if the son-in-law did not have any intention, it was hard to guarantee that there would be shameless people who would insist on getting close to him. In addition, if he was drunk, he would be at the mercy of others. It would be a lie to say that Sun Yijia was not worried at all. If it was just a short-lived marriage, it was fine. She was just worried that they would be deliberately schemed against and have no choice but to bring him home. However, Luo Jingbua had already made such a promise, so she could only suppress these worries in her heart. If it really happened, she would think of a way to help him deal with the aftermath. Just as she was thinking about this, she did not expect that Luo Jingbua would actually come looking for her at this time. "Jingbua, didn't you say that you were going out to attend a literary event? Why haven't you left yet?" Sun Yijia asked curiously. "Third brother, you can't bear to part with sister-in-law, right? You should check again before you go out," Jingwan teased. Now that they were married, their skin had become thicker. Not only Luo Jingbua, but even Sun Yijia could not change her expression. Therefore, Luo Jingbua only smiled and said, "I'm here to look for little sister." "Oh, third brother, what's the matter?" "Well, I want to borrow little sister Hei Mei for a day." Speaking of this, Luo Jingbua was also quite embarrassed, but he had no choice. After all, he was limited by his status. If he rejected a woman who voluntarily came to him, he would inevitably offend some people who deliberately sent themselves to him. In the past, he could barely muddle through, but today was different. He was worried that he would not be able to handle it, so he thought of this method. It was not easy to bring his wife, but it was not a problem to bring a servant girl. With a beauty by his side, and a rather special beauty at that, those people would definitely restrain themselves. Without needing to explain in detail, Jingwan also understood Luo Jingbua's intention. She looked at Sun Yijia rather ambiguously. Sun Yijia could not help but blush at this moment. She glared at Jingwan and said, "Just say whether you want to borrow her or not." "Borrow, borrow, borrow, how can I not lend her?" She turned around and said, "Little sister Hei Mei, accompany third brother to go out and have fun today." "Yes, Mississippi," little sister Hei Mei responded very straightforwardly. She did not have any intention of being unwilling. Luo Jingbua also slightly breathed a sigh of relief. Although little sister Hei Mei would not disagree with his little sister's words, it was better to be willing than not being willing. Jingwan thought for a moment and said, "Bai Shao also go with them." Bai Shao was more shrewd than little sister Hei Mei when it came to doing things. After getting along with them for a few days, she could tell that these two sisters had suffered a lot and had gone through a lot. Their temperament was far better than her 4 servant girls. It would not be difficult for them to handle today's situation. However, little sister Hei Mei was still resolute in her bones. With Bai Shao following her, it would be more appropriate. Moreover, the black and white twin sisters were such a gimmick that people would feel ashamed of their inferiority. Yes, Mississippi, Bai Shao was actually quite worried that her little sister would go out alone. Jingwan stood up and said, "Today, Miss will personally pick out the clothes and do the makeup for you." Everyone could not help but laugh. Not only did Miss want to support third young master, but she was also in high spirits. Jingwan first put on the beautiful makeup for the two sisters, and then asked the servant girls to comb their hair into matching buns. After that, she changed into suitable clothes. Jingwan felt that she was going to be obsessed with her own masterpiece. You don't have to be polite to those women who want to get close to third brother. Don't worry, Mississippi. This servant knows what to do. Jingwan nodded. You have to protect yourselves. I will protect you all. Thank you, Mississippi. When the two sisters appeared in front of Luo Jinghua, this third young master Luo, who did not care much about women's appearance, was stunned. However, he said, "Little sister, if I take you out like this, I am afraid that I can't bring you back if others take a fancy to you. As the saying goes, the rarer something is, the more precious it is." Little sister Hei Mei's beauty was too special. If she took her out like this, it would inevitably attract attention. Moreover, Bai Xiao had the same face as her, so she looked special. Jingwan rolled her eyes at him ungracefully. If there is really someone who is obsessed with her, you can just say that great elder princess gave her to me. My sister-in-law was worried about you, so she lent her to you to take out. In this way, those people should understand that probably no one will send you beauties in the future. As for those who come to you on their own accord, can't you deal with them? With the help of the great elder princess, it would be a waste if she did not make use of it. She believed that her foster mother would not care about it. On the contrary, she would support her when she met with trouble. After all, she was half a Wangzhou now. If she was humiliated casually, great elder princess might be disappointed. Status determined many things. If she was always kind, others would only think that she was weak and easy to bully, and it would also reduce the dignity of the person behind her. She was not a person who only knew how to shrink back. Now she should be tougher. Sun Yijia looked at Jingwan and said, "Sister Wan, are you trying to make me a shrew? You have to bear with it. Only when you bear with it can you gain something." Third young Master Luo has a red tiger in his family, and he is also afraid of his wife. Most of the people have stopped. Why do you still care about your reputation now? Jingwan said indifferently. I don't care, but... Sister, you're right. Ija, you have to bear with it. Luo Jinghua laughed. As for his fear of his wife, he did not care at all. He left with the two beauties. Sun Yijia was speechless about Luo Jinghua's open-mindedness. Jingwan touched Sun Yijia's head as if she was comforting a child. She said with a smile, "Sister-in-law, don't worry. Grandmother doesn't even care about her son's affairs. How can she care about her grandson? Grandfather is the same. On the contrary, if he spoils his concubine and neglects his wife, he will be severely punished. My mother also doesn't care about her daughter-in-law. As for my father, even if he has an opinion, he can hold it in. If he dares to punish you, I'll ask grandmother to punish him." Sun Yijia was impressed by Jingwan. "You're simply rebellious and unfilial." Jingwan snorted and did not take it seriously. "My good sister, it's okay to say these words in private. Don't speak carelessly in public. Don't worry about it. Don't I have a sense of propriety?" After Luo Jingying went back, she applied medicine on her wrist. However, there was no improvement. She was very stubborn and did not want to look for the Lu matriarch, but in the end, she could not help it. When she went to the Lu matriarch, she could not help but cry. She only felt wronged. She had suffered so much, but her mother did not care about her. The Lu matriarch's heart softened for a moment, but only for a moment. She was an ingrate. No matter how good her mother was to her, she would not remember it. "Mother, it hurts. Even if it hurts, endure it. You asked for it." Luo Jingying ran to Begonia House again. She always forgot the pain after the scar healed. She could never win. She did not know how to be roundabout. She was like a rash person who barged in recklessly. No matter how much pain she suffered, she deserved it. "Mother, how can you do this? I am your daughter. Luo Jingying could not help but shout. Daughter? The Lu matriarch sneered. You want me to be a good mother, but have you ever been a good daughter? If others treat you well, it's natural. If they don't treat you well, you feel wronged. You feel that everyone owes you. Luo Jingying, how shameless are you? Get out of here. Okay. Mother, don't regret it. Luo Jingying turned around and ran away. The Lu matriarch regretted it. She regretted teaching her daughter to be like this. She knew that her life was not good now. Although some things were not obvious, she could feel it. Especially her son, who dared to talk back to her because of Huan Nyang. She was so angry that her liver hurt. If she didn't find a way to fix it, she would really become a lonely person. In such a situation, how could she still think about the glory of the Lu family? The most important thing was to take care of the current situation. Therefore, after all, she was an experienced person. The Lu matriarch was not like Luo Jingying, who was always confused and unable to see through things. Luo Jingbua was participating in the Dragon Boat Festival, which was relatively grand. Basically, all the young talents in the capital were present. Such a good opportunity to win people over, some of the princes naturally would not miss it. The festival was set up in a stone forest outside the imperial city. It was called a stone forest, but in fact, the stones here were all different. They had a unique shape and beauty. There were no man-made carvings, but they were more skillful than man-made carvings. There were also some bustling trees mixed in. After careful trimming and care, some flowers and trees were transplanted, some of the gravel was cleared out, and some natural stone tables were carved. During this period, it became the most beautiful natural place. This place was tacitly recognized as a place for scholars. Almost every day, more or less people would visit. And the relatively large festivals were basically in this place. Because Luo Jingbua was waiting for Jingwan to put on the makeup for the black and white beauties, he spent a lot of time. He left later than expected, so naturally, he arrived later. Those heavenly embellished nobles had already gathered. Therefore, when Luo Jingbua appeared with the two beauties, he immediately attracted a lot of attention. Although Luo Jingbua had already expected this, he still paused. Then, as if nothing had happened, he went forward to greet the nobles. Used to seeing beautiful women with fair skin, no one could help but take a few more glances at Sister Hei, this kind of unconventional beauty. Especially when mixed with a trace of wildness, she was different from ordinary beauties. It was very easy to arouse some people's desire to conquer her. Therefore, there really were some shameless people who were ready to make a move. Jingbua, you have such good luck with women. Where did you get these two strange beauties? The one who spoke was Imperial Prince Kong. Seeing Imperial Prince Kang's lustful eyes almost glued to Sister Hei, Luo Jingbua felt very disgusted. He didn't come into contact with this circle before. Although there were some lustful people around him, none of them was so shameless. After all, he was a prince. There were many beauties around him. How could he show such a dirty look? Didn't they say that he had deep feelings for his princess? Yes, she was already the former Princess Kong. She was just a dead person. After being freed from the shackles, it didn't matter if he indulged her a little. Therefore, Luo Jingbua directly used his killer move and used Jingwan's excuse. They were given to me by Great Elder Princess. It's a grand occasion today, so I'm sure they'll be surrounded by beauties. If I come alone, I'll look shabby. So, Ijia borrowed 2 people from me to make up for the occasion, Luo Jingbua said casually. This time, not to mention Imperial Prince Kong, other people's eyes also focused. There was no need to ask who Luo Jingbua's younger sister was. Oh, he also had 2 concubine sisters. It was really embarrassing. More than 99% of the people present didn't know that there were such 2 people. Jingwan's current identity was Great Elder Princess's adopted daughter and Jin Qinhuang's fiancée. Whether it was Great Elder Princess or Jin Qinhuang, they couldn't afford to offend her. So, these 2 beauties, no one could have any improper ideas. Imperial Prince Kang's gaze turned to Li Hongyuan, who was casually drinking wine, and laughed strangely. So it's sixth younger brother's luck with women. Recently, I haven't heard of sixth younger brother doting on any beauties. Is it that the hidden residence doesn't let us know, or is there no one to your liking for the time being? In any case, they are all prepared for you. It's better to take these two back. Luo Jinghua couldn't help but frown. Imperial Prince Kong was too much. Li Hongyuan faintly glanced at Imperial Prince Kong. A dog's mouth can't spit out ivory. Li Hongyuan. Imperial Prince Kong suddenly stood up, unable to restrain his anger. With so many people present, he actually didn't give him any face? However, he simply couldn't voice out this kind of question. If he did, Li Hongyuan would refute it. What, did Ben Wong say something wrong? The people Imperial Aunt sent were prepared for me? If you have the ability, say it in front of Imperial Aunt. Also, don't compare Ben Wong with you. It's as if you haven't seen a woman in 8 lifetimes. Imperial Prince Kong almost directly rushed up to fight with him, but fortunately, he didn't lose his reason. It's just that, those eyes that couldn't wait to tear Li Hongyuan apart, unfortunately, eyes weren't knives and had no effect on Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan casually threw the cup on the table and got up to leave. It was because he was bored that he came out to pass the time. But this damned place was even more boring. Jin Qin Wang had always been a willful and reckless person. He came when he wanted to come and went when he wanted to leave. No one dared to say anything. Being swept away in front of so many people, Imperial Prince Kong was so angry that his liver hurt, so he took his anger out on Luo Jinghua. For Luo Jinghua, this simply didn't hurt or itch. The Luo family's current position could be said to have almost returned to its previous neutral position. Luo Peishan had already told them about this point. There was no need to pay attention to these Wangye. It wasn't that they didn't think about whether or not they would be settled by the new emperor in the future, but since grandfather said so, they would naturally do as he said. Grandfather climbed to his current position. The decisions he made were naturally after careful consideration. It was certainly the most beneficial to the Luo family. As grandfather said, if the Luo family was really defeated in the end, then it would be the end of their luck. Many people used obscure gazes to size up Imperial Prince Kong. Although they knew that Jin Qin Wang was powerful, but as the elder brother, he was still in such a difficult situation despite holding great power. It was really useless. If such a person became the emperor, the possibility of being overthrown by the ministers was too high. Imperial Prince Rui was watching from the sidelines. He saw everyone's agreement, and this was exactly what he wanted. It had to be said that for him to be able to cultivate his qi today, his good sixth brother had contributed greatly. When facing Li Hongyuan, it was best not to provoke him. If he accidentally provoked him, the way to deal with it was only one word: endure. Otherwise, being angry to the point of liver pain was considered light. The so-called literary assembly naturally couldn't be lacking in poems and essays, but it also couldn't be lacking in the music of string instruments and strings, decadent and lingering sounds. Somewhere, the familiar phoenix courting phoenix sounded. Perhaps it was because it carried 120% of deep affection and was very sentimental. Following that, the poem Phoenix Courting Phoenix wasn't recited in cadence, but was sung by a clear female voice. Unsurprisingly, Luo Jinghua once again became the focus of this kind of people. One didn't need to think to know that it was directed at Luo Jinghua. When they looked at Luo Jinghua, if it wasn't ambiguous, it was envy, jealousy, and hatred. This voice seems to be Huai Qin Pleasure Boat's courtesan, Lin Chu Chu. It doesn't seem to be, it's definitely her. Lin Chu Chu only sells her skills and not her body. How many people want to redeem her and take her as a concubine? Even the imperial family's relatives and the sons of dukes and marquises were all rejected by her. Looking at her actions today, it seems that she has taken a fancy to Luo Gongzi. This Lin Chu Chu is a first-class talented woman with high standards. However, it doesn't seem too surprising that she would take a fancy to Luo Gongzi. It's just that I originally thought she was Jin Qin Wang's person. Speaking of which, as the courtesan of the pleasure boat, she actually only sold her skills and not her body. After rejecting so many people, it was absolutely impossible that she didn't have a backer behind her. And it was said that the master of Huai Chin pleasure boat was Jin Chin Wang. It was said that the beauties inside had to wait for him to pick before they could come out to receive guests. This rumor had never been confirmed, but the possibility was very high. When the song ended, Lin Chu Chu, who was hiding behind the rocks, appeared. She was wearing a white chiffon dress and a thin veil on her face. Her eyes were very firm and her goal was very clear. She leisurely walked towards Luo Jinghua. The surrounding people all had a kind of, as expected, feeling. And the people surrounding Luo Jinghua gave her face and stepped aside. Although many people were jeering, Luo Jinghua's mood was actually not very good. This kind of luck with women, he really didn't like it. Especially when the other party used his wedding song to express her love for him, there was a kind of feeling of being defiled. In fact, Luo Jinghua couldn't be blamed for having such thoughts. The women who came out of brothels and pleasure boats belonged to the lower 9 classes. The secular world was like this. And Luo Jinghua, who was born in a scholarly family, didn't like beauty. He occasionally went to brothels, but it was just to sit and talk. Therefore, he couldn't be blamed for looking down on these women. Chu Chu pays respect to Luo Gongzi. In the end, Luo Jinghua still had a good upbringing and couldn't do things that would casually throw his face. Miss doesn't need to be so polite. Lin Chu Chu stood up straight and looked at Luo Jinghua. Chu Chu admires Gongzi and is willing to serve Gongzi. Many people were in an uproar. What was that? This was throwing herself at him. The capital's #1 pleasure boat's courtesan was throwing herself at Luo Jinghua. It seemed that even the capital's #1 Gongzi, Sun Yilin, didn't receive this treatment. At this moment, countless daggers flew towards Luo Jinghua. Luo Jinghua frowned. Miss, I'm sorry. Forgive this one for not being able to accept. Lin Chu Chu's eyes faintly revealed disbelief, but more than that, she was heartbroken. Chu Chu, can I ask why? Why? Of course, this Gongzi doesn't like it. Of course, this Gongzi's little sister doesn't like it even more. Just as Luo Jinghua was thinking about how to answer, Hei Mei stood up. Do you still need to ask this question? Hei Mei, don't be rude. Luo Jinghua softly reprimanded. Third young master, this servant saw that you were in a difficult position. Before we left, young mistress had instructed us sisters to take care of Gongzi. Hei Mei raised her eyebrows and chuckled. She especially emphasized the word, take care. Luo Jinghua's lips curled into a rather helpless yet doting smile. You are my little sister's people. Young mistress borrowed us. During this period of time outside, naturally, we will follow young mistress's wishes. Bai Xiao also added with a smile. How could Lin Chu Chu not understand? Although it was said to be for show, it was actually to prevent other women from getting close to him. Perhaps it was out of resentment, or perhaps it was out of unwillingness. One of the former 2 beauties of the capital is actually the Rouge Tiger. Even if they had agreed before leaving, Luo Jinghua was still very unhappy, especially the word former. Was it hinting at Yi Jia's current appearance? Miss, you're rude. Lin Chu Chu's tears fell. There was probably nothing more hurtful than this. How can you speak like this? The servant girl behind Lin Chu Chu saw that she was wronged and immediately shouted in dissatisfaction. Lin Chu Chu hurriedly stopped her. I'm sorry, young Master Luo. Chu Chu will take her leave now. She turned and left rather awkwardly. Jinghua really doesn't know how to have tender feelings for the fairer sex. Even such a beauty is rejected by the human heart. Prince Rue joked. That's right, that's right. Even if he can't bring her back, he can just find a small house outside to raise her. The others echoed. Raising a mistress outside, unless water had entered his brain, he wouldn't do such a thing. Apart from possibly disturbing the peace of the house and making his wife sad, it also affected his conduct and naturally related to his future career. For a woman on a pleasure boat, causing his wife to be sad at home. How can a real man do that? Quite a few people suffered from this strike, and the scene fell silent for a moment. Prince Rue laughed loudly. Jinghua, should this prince say that you are infatuated or that you are henpecked? Probably because of your infatuation and fear. I can't tell. One by one, they made fun of Luo Jinghua. The matter was forgotten and no longer brought up again. However, the original plan of using a woman to win Luo Jinghua over had really been dispelled. He had already gone to this extent, yet he still insisted on sending the woman over. If Luo Jinghua rejected him, wouldn't it put everyone in an awkward position? However, Luo Jinghua was forced to drink a lot. Who asked him to be unsociable? The literary gathering itself was just a gimmick. Its main purpose was to provide a platform for making friends. However, even so, there were still a few good poems, and several princes won prizes. In the end, when they finally returned, Luo Jinghua was lying on the ground. 2 days later, the Dragon Boat Festival would be held. In Qi Yuan, this festival was very grand. The emperor would go out and enjoy with the people. The most lively thing was probably the dragon boat race. In the past, it was the noble ministers who prepared the dragon boats. Every year, there would be 10 dragon boats. This year, it was the princes who prepared the dragon boats. Starting from the old Prince Kong, they lined up until there were 10 of them. Because 2 of the top 10 princes died, they lined up until the 12th prince. The other 2 princes were less than 16. It was not the time for them to be crowned as kings, so they were really just there to make up the numbers. Because some princes were always fighting, they naturally had to compete and fight for everything. Therefore, this year's dragon boat race was going to be interesting again. On the bank of the moat, after the location of the imperial tent of the dragon court was determined, people lined up on both sides according to the height of the gate. Because Luo Peishan was promoted to the Minister of Personnel, his position this year was naturally closer to the imperial tent than last year. However, Jing Wan was not there last year, so it didn't matter to him where he fought. All the young masters of the Luo family had come out, including Luo Jingying, but she seemed to be quite quiet. When all the masters arrived, the shed had already been set up. It was covered with carpets, tables and chairs, and all kinds of fruits and snacks. There would be a banquet at noon. It should be noted that all the families basically came together. There were only 2 words, the more the merrier. The children were running around, followed by a group of servants. They were worried that their little princess would be accidentally hurt. Jingwan sat in her shed and looked at the wide moat with her chin in her hand. She estimated that it was at least 100 meters wide, much wider than she expected. Although it was called a moat, it should be regarded as the moat of the inner city. Because there were large areas of streets and houses outside the moat. It was said that because the population of Qi Yuan increased, especially the imperial city, it had no choice but to expand outward. Miss, Great Elder Princess asked someone to invite you to her place. It's my fault. I should go to visit my foster mother. Jingwan got up and straightened her sleeves. Jingwan went to the shed of Great Elder Princess's mansion with Nanny Gong and 2 maids. Along the way, she met many girls from other mansions. No matter what the reason was, at least they greeted her in a friendly manner. When Jingwan arrived at the shed of Great Elder Princess's mansion, she happened to meet Ruan Fengfei. Ruan Fengfei was still smiling gently and elegantly, looking very beautiful. However, this kind of coincidence was not the first time that Jingwan had encountered such a coincidence. It made Jingwan feel as if she was haunted by a ghost, which was really not a good feeling. The curtain was lifted, and Ruan Fengfei let Jingwan show up. Jingwan didn't refuse. Because of the relationship between Great Elder Princess and Ruan Fengfei, it was not impolite. Moreover, she had a feeling that if she declined modestly, something else might happen. Wan, come here. Come here. Great Elder Princess beamed. Jingwan still squatted, saluted, and stepped forward. Foster mother. Alas, good girl. Great Elder Princess pulled her to sit beside her. On the other side of her was Wangzhu Yuyao. Great Elder Princess then saw Ruan Fengfei, who was 1 step behind. Ruan Fengfei is also here. Sit down. Ruan Fengfei bowed gracefully. Thank you, Great Elder Princess. She stepped forward and sat down beside Great Elder Princess. The difference between the position beside Great Elder Princess and the position below Great Elder Princess was like the difference between the main position and the secondary position. Did it show the difference between their identities? Ruan Fengfei lowered her eyelids, but in an instant, she smiled like a flower. Both of you are good girls. If there is a chance in the future, you should kiss each other more. Great Elder Princess looked at Jingwan and Ruan Fengfei and said so. A girl next to her covered her mouth and laughed. Of course, we should kiss each other more. After all, they will be a family in the future. Great Elder Princess was slightly stunned and then stopped smiling. At this moment, she remembered that not only her foster daughter was betrothed to Prince Jin, but Ruan Fengfei was also betrothed to him as his concubine. Speaking of this, she was helpless. It was all her brother's fault. It was also her fault. She didn't realize that Buran wouldn't call both of them here at the same time. So, she glanced at the girl who spoke indifferently. She was just a girl of the Jiang family. Because of Great Elder Princess's glance, the girl couldn't help but turn pale. Jingwan pretended not to hear anything and said nothing. Ruan Fengfei was even worse. She didn't even lift her eyelids. Probably in order to break the awkwardness, someone proposed to play Ma Diao. Great Elder Princess agreed. Jingwan originally wanted to refuse, but Great Elder Princess asked her to sit down. So, Jingwan sat on the seat above Ruan Fengfei. For this kind of card, Jingwan, as she said to Great Elder Princess, only knew how to play, so she was relatively slow. In the third round, when Jingwan played a card and Ruan Fengfei took a card, the back of Jingwan's hand was scratched by Ruan Fengfei's nails for some reason. The skin was broken and red. Ruan Fengfei hurriedly apologized. Jingwan felt a little strange, but she didn't say anything and pressed her hand with a handkerchief. Well, it's because third Miss Luo's skin is too tender. Even Great Elder Princess couldn't help but echo. Speaking of maintenance, Jingwan smiled and said, I took the prescription and cooperated with Rouge Pavilion. The finished product is out, but I don't know if it has been sold. Girls naturally liked this kind of thing. They discussed it with great interest and didn't notice the dim light flashing through Ruan Fengfei's eyes. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653087. HTML. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of the book. www.bicken.com. Bicken.com mobile version website. Bicken.com. Chapter 145. After a few more rounds, there was a noise outside. Great Elder Princess's maid came in to report, Master, His Majesty and several masters in the palace have arrived. Emperor Lu Chengdi's arrival naturally put the game on hold and everyone went out to greet him. Jingwan stood up and paused for a moment, feeling a little dizzy. Ruan Fengfei walked past her and clearly saw her exceptionally bright and beautiful smile. Jingwan subconsciously touched the scratch on the back of her hand. She lowered her head and looked at it. It seemed to be no different from a small scratch. At this moment, the surface had already formed a scab. She gently rubbed it and the obvious scab fell off. There was no more bleeding. Young lady, Nanny Gong saw that Jingwan was still standing at the same spot after everyone else had left. She walked forward and saw Jingwan staring at the scratch on her hand. Thinking that something had happened, she hurriedly pulled her hand over to take a closer look. Worried, she took her pulse but did not find anything wrong. However, she knew that her young lady was not the type to make a fuss out of nothing. In the past, when she was tending to the flowers and plants, she would occasionally scratch her hand. She was completely unconcerned. Miss, what's wrong? Jingwan frowned and said, Nanny, ask someone to find my grandmother and tell her that I suddenly feel a little uncomfortable. I don't want to be impolite in front of His Majesty, so I won't go to greet him. Jingwan was not being paranoid. The main reason was that the situation was special now. She obviously felt that Ruan Fengfei was not kind to her. At this time, it was better to be careful. If something really happened when she was greeting His Majesty, she might get into trouble and the Luo family might be implicated. The loss outweighed the gain. Moreover, Jingwan didn't think that her dizziness was an illusion. She had always been healthy. She didn't suffer from anemia or hypoglycemia. She also had plenty of sleep. How could she feel dizzy for no reason? She didn't encounter anything stimulating, so naturally, she wouldn't have an illusion. Nanny Gong looked more serious and said, "Miss, let me help you go back." Jingwan looked fine and felt that she was in a good state. It was better to play a complete show, so she said, "Nanny, do you have any way to make me look weak?" Granny Gong thought for a moment. "Then miss, please bear with it." Jingwan felt a sudden burst of pain in several places on her body. Without special training, the average person's ability to endure pain was not very strong. Perhaps Jingwan's will was slightly stronger than the average person's, so her ability to endure pain was better. But now, it was not very good, and she almost cried out. However, the pain left as quickly as it came. She felt weak in her body and her legs gave way. If Granny Gong hadn't caught her, she would have fallen to the ground. "Miss, let me carry you back." Jingwan nodded weakly. "Nanny, where did you learn this method? It's too cruel." Jingwan couldn't see her own face at this moment. She would probably say, "Amazing." Her healthy and rosy cheeks were now completely pale. Coupled with her weak appearance, no one would suspect that she was faking it. Nanny Gong carried Jingwan in her arms. When the servant girl outside saw Jingwan's appearance, she was really frightened. "Nanny, what's wrong with Miss?" "I'll tell you later." "Qing Zhu, go find old madam. Miss is not very well, so don't say anything unnecessary." "Yes." Nanny Gong carried Jingwan and Bai Xiao back to the shed of the Luo family. The shed naturally had an inner room, for rest. Nanny Gong put Jingwan on the bed and put a pillow on her. "Miss, it may last for 2 hours. It may not be very good. Bear with it for the time being." It was indeed not good to feel weak all over. "It's okay." She closed her eyes to rest. Because she always had a good rest schedule, she couldn't fall asleep at this moment. Ruan Fengfei found that Jingwan didn't follow them out. She narrowed her eyes slightly and wondered what was going on. Could it be that she had found some clues? No, it shouldn't be. It was just a small scratch. How could there be such a careful person in the world? Even the emperor, who let people test the poison first before eating anything, wouldn't be so careful. If there was really someone who could do this, then he wouldn't have to come into contact with anyone and wouldn't be able to live a good life. Perhaps the effect of the drug took effect in advance. But even so, what could be done? Ruan Fengfei smiled carelessly. After receiving Qing Zhu's message, old Madame Luo was also worried, but she couldn't leave at this time. Lu Chengdi was escorted by the imperial guards on both sides. The leader was not the commander of the imperial guards, but many princes. Regardless of whether they were crowned as kings or not, all of them were above the age of 10. The one in the second carriage was the empress, followed by noble consort Su and consort Qin Shufei. Behind them were the favored concubines, and behind them were the princesses. For such a festive day, it was naturally impossible for all the concubines in the imperial harem to come out. At this time, it depended on their status and how favored they were. If they were not favored and had no status, then they could only continue to rot in the palace. Everyone knelt down and shouted, "Long live," 3 times. Only one person stood at the top, enjoying everyone's submission. It was no wonder that so many people wanted to sit in that position. The taste of power was really addictive. Lu Chengdi said, "You may rise." He didn't say anything else. After Lu Chengdi and the imperial concubines were properly settled, the others dispersed. Old Madame Luo let Wang Shi stay for the time being and hurriedly went back. How could she feel uncomfortable without any reason? Out of concern for her son, Su Guifei wanted to call Jin Qin Wang's prospective Wang Fei and prospective Su Fei over to continue the conversation. Originally, after Su Guifei knew that Ruan Fong Fei's fate was not suitable to be the imperial family's wife, she felt a bit of disgust towards her. However, her status was there. For the sake of the Grand Secretary's face, she shouldn't favor one and discriminate against the other. However, it was obvious that only Ruan Fong Fei appeared in front of her. After learning the situation, noble consort Su's heart skipped a beat. She was really scared by Li Hongyuan's misfortune. Now, it was just an imperial edict to grant marriage. They hadn't officially engaged yet. If something happened, it would be terrible. Her son might really be a bachelor for the rest of his life. Noble consort Su couldn't sit still and hurriedly sent someone to call Lu Qingdi. Great elder princess also couldn't help frowning. One was at my place before. Why did she feel uncomfortable after just turning around? She didn't wait for Lu Qingdi and directly left. Obviously, she wanted to see Jing Wan in person. On Lu Qingdi's side, the conversation with the officials hadn't officially started yet, but he came quickly. Noble consort Su just talked about Jing Wan's situation, and Lu Qingdi's reaction was almost the same as hers. He turned around and ordered the imperial physician to go to the shed of the Luo family. He originally thought that the former one's situation should be better after she got married. If this one suddenly had an accident, then Lu Qingdi probably wouldn't dare to grant another marriage, so as not to harm other girls. Your Majesty, I want to see her in person. Please allow me, noble consort Su said. They were also outside the palace. Go ahead. Noble consort Su put her hand on an ant's arm. She still looked dignified and graceful, but she couldn't help walking faster. Halfway through, she seemed to think of something. Go and ask someone to call Yuan here. Ruan Fong Fei, who followed behind her, subconsciously clenched her fists, but in a flash, she loosened them. Wasn't it better to have more people? It was more interesting to let them all have a good look, wasn't it? Ruan Fong Fei calculated the time in her heart. The imperial tent was not far from the shed of the Luo family. Prince Jean and the imperial physician walked faster than them, so there wasn't much difference. Even if Prince Jean arrived a little later, it didn't matter. Jing Wan was not only weak because of Mammy Gong's attack, but also dizzy. If she still couldn't figure out that she had been set up, she would have lived in vain. Mammy Gong's face was very gloomy. Madame Luo was very worried, and so was Great Elder Princess. However, the doctor of the Luo family had already felt Jing Wan's pulse and both hands, but he couldn't find the reason. Madam, I'm incompetent. I can't diagnose the cause of third Mrs. illness. Shut up. Great Elder Princess was so angry that she wanted to scold him, but she realized that he was a servant of the Luo family. She had to consider the master's face before beating the dog, so she said, "Call the imperial physician." Knowing that she had been set up, it was not a wise choice to call the imperial physician, but obviously, she couldn't refuse in this situation. Noble consort Su is here. So, except for Jing Wan, who couldn't get up, and Great Elder Princess, everyone in the room got up and bowed. Madam, please don't be so polite. How is your third miss? Noble consort Su asked worriedly. Your Highness, I haven't found the cause of her illness yet. I'm going to ask the imperial physician to take a look. Madame Luo was very anxious at this moment. Madam, don't worry. The imperial physician has been invited and will be here soon. I'd like to see that girl. But then she saw Great Elder Princess. After a pause, they greeted each other. Great Elder Princess was not interested in the people in her brother's harem, including the Empress's sister-in-law. Each of them looked dignified and virtuous, but in fact, none of them were easy to deal with. Therefore, it was good enough to make her nod when they met. When noble consort Su saw Jingwan's expression, she was also shocked. It was as if she was a completely different person from before. However, Ruan Fengfei, who was standing a little farther away, had a trace of inquiry in her eyes. Her illness was far from fatal. At most, it would make her feel inexplicably dizzy and then she would need to call the imperial physician. Ruan Fengfei gently rubbed the purse on her waist. Jingwan smelled the mixed fragrance in the air. Although it was very faint, it suddenly made her feel sick. "Ew, miss." Nanny Gong hurriedly supported Jingwan and patted her back. "Wan." Madame Luo also hurried forward. In fact, Jingwan didn't vomit anything, but noble consort Su still stepped back and subconsciously covered her mouth and nose with a handkerchief. But then she realized that it was not appropriate and put down her hand as if nothing had happened. Fortunately, there was no smell. Great Elder Princess glanced at her and coldly raised the corner of her mouth, pretending to be sick. Jingwan wanted to vomit again. She reluctantly raised her weak hand and tried to push Nanny Gong away. Nanny Gong didn't mind and held Jingwan's wrist. However, her heart almost jumped out when she touched Jingwan's wrist. Fortunately, she had practiced the skill of keeping calm and collected for many years. She moved her hand quietly and pressed her fingertips on Jingwan's pulse. There was no mistake. It was indeed a smooth pulse. She had felt Jingwan's pulse several times, and the imperial physician had also felt her pulse, but there was no sign of slippery pulse. The girl vomited suddenly after noble consort Su came in. To be exact, it should be after Wan Fengfei came in. Nanny Gong glanced at Wan Fengfei secretly and happened to see her take her hand away from the purse on her waist. If she hadn't found it by accident, the imperial physician would have been the next one to feel the girl's pulse. Prince Jin's future wife was pregnant. This was not as simple as being forcibly defiled. It should be known that this marriage was proposed by the Luo family. The furious Emperor Lu Chengdi would only think that the Luo family wanted his son to be a cheap father. How dare they plot against his son and the imperial family? He wouldn't think about the unreasonable things in it rationally. Maybe he would immediately execute the girl. Not only would she die in vain, but she would also bear a bad reputation. The Luo family, who deceived the emperor, would also be wiped out. What a sinister and vicious idea. It turned out that the real killing move was waiting here. Nanny Gong suppressed the fear in her heart. Fortunately, she found it first, and fortunately, the girl was protected by the prince. Even if she didn't find it and the girl was diagnosed with a slippery pulse, the prince would try his best to clear the girl's name. One thing that Wan Fengfei didn't expect at all was that Li Hongyuan cared about Jingwan. He was her biggest backer. Prince Jin has arrived. As soon as the voice fell, Li Hongyuan personally lifted the curtain and came in. His eyes were gloomy and the hostility on his body seemed to be substantial. His old man had already decreed the marriage, so he naturally had fewer scruples. He directly walked to the side of the bed and saw that Jingwan's complexion was very poor. Her eyes were closed and she looked like she was on the verge of death. At this moment, he really wanted to tear Wan Fengfei into pieces. When noble consort Su sent someone to call him, he actually already knew about this matter and rushed over first. "How is it?" Nanny Gong's back was facing the others, but Li Hongyuan could see very clearly. Nanny Gong pressed on the inside of Jingwan's arm under her armpit and then took Jingwan's pulse without leaving a trace. He breathed a sigh of relief and supported Jingwan to lie back down. "Your Highness, the cause of the illness hasn't been diagnosed yet." How could Li Hongyuan not know that Nanny Gong changed Wan's pulse? If it was just a normal pulse, even if she was seriously ill, there was no need to do this. His face was terribly gloomy, and his eyes shot like arrows to the two imperial physicians who came in behind him. "Get over here." The two imperial physicians couldn't help trembling and hurried forward. Noble consort Su raised her eyebrows at Li Hongyuan's attitude. Although her son's temper had always been bad and it was normal for him to be impatient and unhappy when he was inexplicably called over, he clearly cared about third Miss Luo. Although this care might not be very obvious, it was already very surprising. However, Wan Fengfei's feeling was completely different. This was the man she had cared about for so many years. He might not be so sharp in other aspects, but he absolutely couldn't deceive her when it came to feelings. Last time when she was with Great Elder Princess, she vaguely felt that he seemed to be different about Luo Jingwan. It turned out that it wasn't her illusion. How could he care about others? He, Li Hongyuan, could only care about her, Wan Fengfei. The devil in Ruan Fengfei's heart almost broke out of her body and rushed up to tear that eyesore into pieces. Wait, wait. Wait until your future princess is diagnosed with a slippery pulse. Let's see if you will still care about her so much. As if feeling Ruan Fengfei's gaze, Li Hongyuan glanced at her with no warmth in his eyes. Even Ruan Fengfei couldn't help but tremble in her heart. He wanted to kill her? He actually wanted to kill her. She always thought that she was special in his heart, but it turned out that she was not at all. Li Hongyuan took a glance at it, so no one except Ruan Fengfei felt his killing intent. The imperial physician carefully felt Jingwan's pulse and was puzzled. Judging from her pulse, it should be the evil spirit in her body, but it seemed to be a little too dangerous. Why couldn't he find the cause of the disease? Not daring to be sure, he checked the other hand and looked at Jingwan's complexion. However, because of Jingwan's special identity, he didn't dare to look carefully and asked Nurse Gong some questions. After checking the pulse, he signaled his old rival to check the pulse. During this process, no one spoke and waited for the second person to finish checking. Tell me the truth. The two imperial physicians looked at each other and deliberated for a moment. Your Highness, from the pulse, it should be the evil spirit in her body. Like what this nurse said, Third Miss Luo has always been healthy, so she didn't notice it. It's just that she suddenly came to the water and the humidity is heavy, so it might be triggered. Moreover, it seems to be a little dangerous. In addition, it might have cooled her stomach. Impossible, Ruan Fengfei screamed in her heart. Nonsense, nonsense, it was obviously a slippery pulse. Her face was a little distorted, but fortunately, she restrained herself and didn't directly shout out. Ruan Fengfei turned and left. She didn't want to stay any longer. If she stayed any longer, she was afraid that she would lose control and do something irrational. Li Hongyuan looked at them for a moment and the two of them broke out in cold sweat. Prescribe medicine. As if they had been granted amnesty, the two of them discussed and prescribed a more conservative prescription. Madame Luo didn't know the truth of the matter, so she hurriedly sent someone to the nearby pharmacy to get the medicine. Li Hongyuan looked at Jingwan, and then his eyes fell on noble consort Su and great elder princess sitting opposite him. Imperial aunt, please leave with my mother first. I'll sit for a while. Since Jingwan didn't seem to be in danger, great elder princess also left quickly. She just told her that after Jingwan got better, she would pass a message to her. Noble consort Su hesitated for a moment and also left. In the end, Li Hongyuan and Madame Luo looked at each other. Madame Luo knew Li Hongyuan's feelings for Jingwan. Although it was against the rules to be alone in a room, they were engaged after all, so they were not as strict as ordinary men and women. Besides, Prince Jean was a man, so even if others knew about it, they wouldn't dare to say anything. Therefore, except for Nanny Gong, all the servants were called away. After a while, Jingwan was also a little tired. Although she didn't fall asleep, she was a little dizzy. Li Hongyuan looked at her quietly and felt distressed. This time, he was wrong. He should have killed Ruan Fengfei earlier. Wan, this is the last time. In the future, if anyone dares to touch you, I will kill his or her whole family. Perhaps because Li Hongyuan's gaze was too strong, Jingwan slowly opened her eyes. In an instant, their eyes met, and the gentleness in Li Hongyuan's eyes was even stronger. Coupled with such a dirty face, Jingwan couldn't stop her heart from beating faster, and she suddenly closed her eyes again. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653088. HTML. Please click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version reading URL bicken.com. Chapter 146. Li Hongyuan saw that Jingwan seemed to be ready to play dead to the end, so he didn't say anything. He reached out and touched Jingwan's face. "Have a good rest. I'll leave first. I'll deal with the other things." Because of Li Hongyuan's sudden touch, Jingwan felt a little scared. If it weren't for the fact that she didn't have much strength, she probably would have slapped him. However, what did "he'll deal with the other things" mean? Could it be that he knew something about her being schemed against this time? Jingwan still didn't know the effect of what Ruan Fengfei used on her, and she didn't have the energy to think about how to repay Ruan Fengfei for the time being. However, she didn't intend to suffer in silence. In the past, she wanted to avoid her. Obviously, some people wouldn't cooperate with you just because you wanted them to. Before Li Hongyuan left, he raised his head and looked at Nanny Gong. Nanny Gong mouthed 2 words to him. Slippery pulse. He had already thought of this possibility, but he didn't think of the exact answer just now. Very good, 3 times more guilty. Take good care of her. Li Hongyuan got up and left. Nanny Gong knew that this former master was not only reminding her, but also warning her. Li Hongyuan didn't need to say anything about today's matter. She also blamed herself for not taking enough precautions. However, who would have thought that Ruan Fengfei would do it personally, and in public? Her thoughts were so clever that it was impossible to guard against. If she wasn't arrogant and conceited, she would have deliberately revealed some clues in front of Jingwan, and Jingwan was so careful that she caught this point and was on guard against her. Perhaps, Jingwan would have fallen completely today. If it was someone else, they would only lose their reputation, and it would be difficult to clear their name even if they died. The most tragic thing was that in the end, it was very likely that they wouldn't know how they were schemed against and who schemed against them. More importantly, her reputation was so good that probably no one would suspect her. This was also extremely terrifying. Just as Li Hongyuan left, the Luo family's doctor came to visit again. It was very simple. He wanted to take Jingwan's pulse again. He didn't believe that he couldn't detect a cold. Earlier, because there were too many nobles around, he managed to hold himself back from acting out. "Sir, it's not your fault that the girl's pulse is not correct." The physician was stunned when he heard this. He stroked his beard and frowned slightly. "Miss, it's just nice now. Why don't you come back later? I'll still have to rely on you after we return to the residence." Changing the pulse wouldn't take a long time. The young lady's current pulse should be showing signs of a slippery pulse. Naturally, he couldn't let the manor doctor diagnose it. However, this slippery pulse wouldn't last for too long. It was just a scratch on the skin. As for how much medicine could be administered, it still needed to be stimulated by other things. If it persisted for too long, wouldn't it go against the heavens? Everything was about balance. Therefore, the duration of maintaining the pulse would definitely be short and not long. The manor doctor wasn't a fool. He immediately thought that there might be something fishy going on. And these things, they often couldn't be let know. If they knew too much, they might lose their little life. So, Laofu will leave now. If third miss needs anything, just summon Laofu. Gong Mama nodded in agreement and sent the manor doctor out. "Mama, what's the use of the things used on my body?" Jingwan opened her eyes and asked. Gong Mama didn't hide anything and told Jingwan the facts and her own conjectures in detail. After listening, Jingwan was silent for a moment. "Mama, you say, she's just a teenage girl. How could her mind be so vicious to this degree? If we were to talk about the intersection between me and her, it would probably be Jin Qin Wang. But when she set her eyes on me, it was clearly before this marriage. However, I feel that this time's scheme against me should be related to Jin Qin Wang. Otherwise, there's no reason for her to be so ruthless. Was it purely because she felt that I had snatched her Wang Fei position, or was it because she actually admired Jin Qin Wang? Although Jin Qin Wang's reputation isn't good," Jingwan's voice lowered a bit, as if she was whispering, "for some women, if the man isn't bad, they won't love him. If it's really like this, do I have reason to suspect that the accident that happened to sister-in-law in Great Princess Royal's residence and the attempted murderer was silenced by her? If the inference is correct, then Jin Qin Wang's former fiancé, even if not all of them fell into her hands, there should be at least some of them." Hearing Jingwan's words, Gong Mama couldn't help but feel a chill all over her body. Even if Wang Yi schemed against the deceased young lady's former fiancé, he didn't kill or cripple him and ruin his reputation. How could this be described as vicious? But how did your Yuan family raise such a young lady? Originally, after asking for this marriage, I still felt a bit guilty towards her. I only wanted to borrow Jin Qinhuang's name to give grandfather more time to gain a foothold in order to stabilize the Luo family and at the same time to solve my own predicament. I only wanted a status and didn't ask for anything else. I didn't want to compete with her. But now, Jingwan slightly lowered her eyes. I won't rest until I die. Gong Mama sat on the edge of the bed and reached out to pat Jingwan's arm. Young lady, don't think so much now. These things can be discussed later. That living king of hell had made his move. How could he give young lady the chance to personally take revenge? So, don't think about these things. Thinking about it is purely in vain. So, why waste your energy? Jingwan smiled. If you don't think about other things to distract yourself, you will only feel more uncomfortable. It's all this servant's fault. How can we blame Mama? We don't know what kind of means she has. This is the safest way. The whispers of the master and servant gradually disappeared. Not long after, Luo Lao Furen personally came to deliver the medicine to Jingwan. Jingwan wasn't really sick. As the saying goes, medicine is 3 parts poison. Naturally, she wouldn't drink it. This matter could be hidden from anyone but Luo Lao Furen. Thus, she pointed out everyone else. Gong Mama softly explained the whole story to Luo Lao Furen, and Luo Lao Furen was unable to restrain her anger. Grandmother, don't be angry. It's not worth it to harm your body from anger. Luo Lao Furen's heart also felt a burst of fear. Fortunately, it was discovered. Otherwise, Jingwan leaned towards Luo Lao Furen. She did it once, so don't blame us for doing it 15 times. Luo Lao Furen lightly patted her. Don't worry about this matter. Don't dirty your hands. Ruan Rue taught such a daughter. He definitely isn't a good person. His daughter pretends to be gentle and flawless. He is most likely a sanctimonious hypocrite. The so-called father's debt is paid by the son. Naturally, the daughter's debt will also be paid by the father. Jingwan obediently shut her mouth and didn't say anything else. Grandmother probably wouldn't care even if she said anything. The Grand Secretary should be wronged. After all, he was an official in the imperial court. With so many old foxes gathered together, how could he not be discovered by anyone? Absolutely impossible. However, she silently lit a candle for him for giving birth to such an evil person. Gong Mama had already taken care of the medicine. Previously, with Luo Lao Furen's obstruction and the presence of nobles, the Luo family didn't come to Jingwan's place, including Jingwan's mother, Madame Zhang. Later, because of Li Hongyuan, Luo Lao Furen directly cleared the place. When Li Hongyuan left, she directly left someone to guard the door and forbade anyone from disturbing them until Luo Lao Furen arrived. Jingwan was quite helpless about her grandmother's dislike of her second daughter-in-law and even her second son. However, it was mainly because of her, so she was in no position to speak. At this moment, the husband and wife had been wandering outside. Madame Zhang occasionally peeked in through the gap in the curtain. She looked quite pitiful. Jingwan didn't know that Sun Yijia and Luo Jinghua were also outside. Grandmother, let them in. Let them wait outside. We'll talk about it after you've calmed down. Alright, Jingwan couldn't win against her grandmother now. It was better to wait for 2 hours to pass. However, because of Jingwan's unexpected situation, the older brothers were fine, but the younger brothers and sisters weren't in the mood to play. Even if they couldn't sit still, they would be suppressed by their mothers. At this moment, Luo Lao Furen was also in a bad mood. When she saw the others having fun, wouldn't she be asking for trouble? It was also because of this that she probably felt a little unhappy. Because Luo Lao Furen favored Jingwan, other than Luo Jingying, no one in the Luo family was envious of Jingwan? No, it was just that they didn't have a mother who instilled bad thoughts. Those ugly thoughts weren't so deep. Moreover, Those who were older than Jingwan more or less knew that when Jingwan was young, the things that she did to her grandmother were something that they couldn't do. Based on this, it was understandable that their grandmother favored their third sister. Therefore, they were relatively calm. Especially the first branch. Jingwan saved Luo Jingda's first child. After that, the husband and wife were grateful to Jingwan, and so was Wang. Therefore, the children of the first branch were stricter. They didn't make trouble for Jingwan before, and they wouldn't in the future. The people of the fourth branch were closer to Jingwan. The three children of the second branch were more respectful to Jingwan. As for the remaining three branches, 3 of them were under 3 years old. The eldest son was taught by Luo Peishan, and the eldest daughter had been suppressed. Now that she was married, the legitimate son was still young, and Lu didn't let him disturb the harem. Therefore, among the grandchildren of the Luo family, the only one who really couldn't get along with Jingwan was Luo Jingying, so naturally, he became miserable. Madame Luo came out of the inner room and saw a group of listless grandchildren in the shed outside. When she learned that Jingwan was fine, the worry in her heart disappeared, and so did her irritation. Go and play. The younger ones couldn't hide their thoughts, so they naturally showed it on their faces. However, they still tried to endure it. Grandmother, is third sister okay? Luo Qi, the legitimate daughter of the fourth branch, asked carefully. Madame Luo smiled. Your third sister is fine. She is healthy. Although the illness came suddenly, as long as she takes medicine and has a rest, she will recover very quickly. Oh, then I am relieved. Then we will go and play. We will bring back delicious food and fun things for third sister. Our Qi girl is so considerate. Your third sister's love for you is not in vain. Luo Qi smiled, and then took the sixth daughter of the first branch and ran away. The others also left in 2s and 3s. Today's dragon boat race was only the biggest event. There were many small games, big and small, to be played together. Jingwan couldn't sleep, but Madame Luo still asked Sun Yijia to go in and chat with her. Listening to Sun Yijia talking about some of the more popular games today, Jingwan felt very sad. Now she was weak and couldn't move. Even after 2 hours, after she recovered, even if she was very energetic, she could only continue to pretend to be sick. She couldn't even go outside to watch the dragon boat race. The imperial physician said that she came to the water and fell ill because of the humidity. Since she acquiesced to their words, she could only obediently curl up. Sun Yijia rarely saw Jingwan's pitiful appearance. He felt very happy and reached out to pinch her nose. Sun Yijia was in contact with Jingwan every day. She was very clear about the condition of her body. The so-called demonic energy had entered her body without any prior signs. It collapsed as soon as it came into contact with heavy moisture. It was more likely to be a lie. There must be something fishy about it. However, since Jingwan didn't say it, Sun Yijia didn't ask. Sister-in-law, you don't have to accompany me. You can play by yourself. It's the same thing every year. You'll only find it novel when you first come to the capital. It's just the same after playing a few more times. Besides, I don't play with those people. Ruan Fengfei is as famous as you, but she is so popular. What about you? You don't even have a confidant. You're too inferior. Jingwan made fun of him unceremoniously. Sun Yijia curled his lips indifferently. She didn't care about that kind of insincere friendship. There were indeed many people who flattered Ruan Fengfei. Could she find a confidant like Sister Wan to her? Don't joke. For Sun Yijia, it was better to have no confidants than to have a substandard one. One confidant was enough. As for those who couldn't wholeheartedly, even half a confidant was too much. You're in better spirits now. Really? Jingwan raised her hand. She did feel much better. I'll probably be able to get up after lying down for a while. She was dying just now, but after drinking the medicine for less than 2 hours, she was full of energy. This medicine was too miraculous, wasn't it? Once again, her guess was confirmed. However, this was also because Jingwan didn't deliberately hide it. Just then, Granny Gong came over and felt Jingwan's pulse. Her pulse was normal, and she nodded slightly. Jingwan smiled. Granny Gong, you know medicine? Sun Yijia asked curiously. Young mistress, I only know some pharmacology and know a few common pulses. I'm far from being skilled in medicine. In fact, Granny Gong not only knew basic pharmacology and was proficient in the art of maintenance, but she also knew the secret medicine used in the backyard. However, she didn't know what Ruan Fengfei used today. It was obvious that she hadn't learned it well. Sun Yijia nodded. As time went by, Jingwan completely recovered. However, even if she sat up, she still leaned against the big pillow. She was still eating melon seeds while talking to Sun Yijia. It was actually more interesting to eat melon seeds by herself. It was no fun to let others peel them. There seemed to be a sound coming from the moat. Is the dragon boat race about to begin? It's almost time. The dragon boat should go into the water, Sun Yijia said. If you want to watch, you can move the bed out. There's no wind now, so it's okay. Jingwan knew that Granny Gong and her grandmother would not object to her going out. However, in the eyes of others, she would probably be labeled as willful. Who cares? Willful is willful. It doesn't matter. Therefore, when Jingwan was carried out, the Luo family was surprised, but they didn't say anything. Most of them expressed their concern for her, and the rest didn't say anything. Among the same generation, the younger ones weren't in the shed. They probably went to the front. According to Sun Yijia, there was an open-air viewing walkway built on the edge of the river bank, specially for those active children. They were relatively free today. As long as it wasn't too excessive, they could basically play wildly. A group of servant girls came to the Luo family's shed with a tray to see if anyone stood out. The tray was already piled with a lot of things. However, at a glance, it was obvious that they were all things for the women. This was completely for fun. It didn't matter if it was suppressed or not. Of course, there was no lack of people who really took this chance to gamble fiercely. Who knows, they might even make a real fire. Jingwan took off a gem-studded bracelet. Which one is Jin Qinhuang's? In any case, he was her future husband. At this time, of course, she had to give him face. One of the servant girls stepped forward, replying to Miss, "It's this servant." However, before she handed the tray over to take the things, another servant girl laid out a brocade handkerchief. Obviously, she wanted Jingwan to put the things on it. Jingwan slightly raised her eyebrows, somewhat puzzled. Even if she didn't like Jin Qinhuang, Sun Yijia still covered her mouth and laughed mockingly. This is specially used by the legitimate wife. Although you haven't married yet, it's understandable that you're using it now. If you don't stand out, or suppress others, then there's fun to see. Jin Qinhuang is 22 years old, and in the end, he was reduced to the same level as the 11th or 12th princes. Ha ha ha. Jingwan was speechless. Why didn't she remind her earlier? What if she really didn't win? Of course, there definitely wouldn't be a situation where she won't win. Wouldn't it be letting others see Jin Qinhuang as a joke? As the main culprit, then wouldn't the living king of hell tear her apart? This wasn't seeing Jin Qinhuang as a joke, but playing with her life. Jingwan put the bracelet on it. The others just casually expressed it. However, when everyone was giving Jingwan face by suppressing Jin Qinhuang, Luo Jingying, who had been silent all this time, used the most valuable thing on her body to bet on Prince Rue. Everyone's complexion wasn't good, but Luo Jingying acted as if nothing had happened. However, Jingwan didn't care. However, the other servant girl who followed her diligently wrote down everything one by one, then bowed and retreated. Their main purpose in coming to the Luo family shed was still Jingwan. When they finally gathered in the imperial tent, it was clear at a glance that the first few Wangye had bet the most things, and the last two princes had bet the least. Adding up the men and women, it was probably a tray of things. Sure enough, it was just to make up the numbers. Kong Qinhuang and Rue Qinhuang were basically equal, with a total of 10 trays. Next was the Gong Qinhuang, and then Li Hongyuan had bet the most. This point was very unexpected. However, it seemed that most of them were things that were commonly used by young people. Lu Chengdi was very interested and asked the reason. The result was that Jin Qin Wang was the most playful, so it wasn't wrong to bet on him. Lu Chengdi's mouth twitched. Because everyone's things were placed right in front of the corresponding person, Li Hongyuan waved his hand to Mu Gonggong behind him. Bring it over. Mu Gonggong completely understood his master's meaning. He stepped forward, picked up the brocade handkerchief, and respectfully presented it. Li Hongyuan's expression didn't change as he took the bracelet, put a piece of blood jade in it, and let Mu Gonggong return it. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653093 HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Biku Gu mobile reading website: bicken.com. Chapter 147. In fact, it was not a big deal for a corpse to appear in the moat. Even under the emperor's foot, it was quite normal for people to throw away corpses. No matter which dynasty it was and what kind of customs it was, this kind of thing was inevitable. It was just that the time and place of the murder was wrong. It was supposed to be a festive day, and everyone was in high spirits. Moreover, the moat was built around the city, and it was still there. The corpse could have been anywhere else, but it just had to appear here. Not only was it unlucky, but it was also disgusting. Therefore, Lu Chengdi's face was very gloomy. Where is the governor? The governor is already there. The corpse has been salvaged. It is a young woman. Judging from her clothes, she should be a maid. Preliminary judgment is that the time of death is no more than 2 hours. The commander of the Imperial Guards paused. Her face was slashed countless times. Except for the eyes, there was no intact part of her body. Her limbs were all broken and strangely twisted. At this time, everyone's eyes were focused on the commander of the Imperial Guards. Their eyes were full of disbelief. Who did this? It was too vicious. In addition, there was no wind today. Although the moat was flowing, it flowed very slowly. It had been less than 2 hours, so the murderer must be nearby now. Daring to do such a thing under Lu Chengdi's nose. Was it a provocation or a provocation? Lu Chengdi was furious. Immediately find out which family the maid is from. I have ordered to assist the governor in the investigation. If she is from a family, I believe there will be a result soon. Lu Chengdi nodded. Tell the others to postpone the dragon boat race for an hour. In addition, pay attention to the blockade of this matter. The so-called blockade was mainly aimed at ordinary people. Lu Chengdi liked to enjoy with the people, so he allowed them to watch from the other side. Of course, the other side was also guarded. The people could only stay outside the guarded area. At this time, the other side was already crowded with people. For them, today, a murder in this special place was not as simple as bad luck. It might be regarded as a bad omen. In this way, it was easy to cause panic. Fortunately, the corpse was close to this side of the river, and because of the twisted limbs, it was basically impossible to see the shape of a human from far away. Thinking about it, even if some people on the other side of the river saw the thing that was salvaged from the river, they probably wouldn't associate it with a dead person. Following the departure of the Grand Commander of the Imperial Guards, the Imperial tent fell into silence. Previously, there was still a faint hint of open strife and veiled strife. Now, it seemed to have completely disappeared, and there was even a hint of gloominess. Even on the other side of the curtain, Lu Chengdi's concubines, including the Empress, were no longer smiling and speaking softly. Although they didn't hear the words of the commander of the Imperial Guards clearly, the young concubines couldn't help but turn pale upon hearing the narration of the palace maids. Even people like the Empress, noble consort Su, felt a chill down their backs. They had killed more than 1 or 2 people, but they had never done it themselves and had never seen such a cruel scene. The Empress ordered and passed down the message, telling the servants serving the princesses and the younger princes to be more attentive. Don't let some messy things enter their ears, and even more, don't go to the scene to look out of curiosity. In Lu Chengdi's imperial tent, in addition to his sons and brothers, there were naturally some important ministers of the court. Whether it was true or false, they all wore a grave expression. Thus, Jin Qin Wang, who had nothing to do with himself, still put on a leisurely posture as he played with the newly obtained bracelet in his hand. It seemed that it was a priceless treasure that he loved so much that he couldn't put it down. It was particularly irksome, and Lu Chengdi, who was easily angered by him, wanted to ruthlessly slap him. Luo Peishan also couldn't help but twitch his mouth when others weren't paying attention. Speaking of which, before, he really couldn't see that this living king of hell was interested in his own grandson. But now that he got what he wanted, it seemed that he was slowly no longer restraining himself. But even so, you should pay attention to the situation a little, there are so many pairs of eyes watching. Unfortunately, a certain someone didn't sense the roaring and unspoken criticism in everyone's hearts. He even moved his body and put on a more comfortable posture. In fact, Jin Qin Wang's biggest characteristic shouldn't be his temperamental and violent temper, nor was it that outrageous fate of bringing misfortune to his wife. It should be that he was super thick-skinned and had reached the state of invulnerability. Because it had nothing to do with Jin Qin Wang in the past, Luo Peishan simply respected Li Hongyuan's status. Now, he increasingly understood Lu Chengdi's mood. Unfortunately, he couldn't vent it out like Lu Chengdi. He was angry until he lost his temper. Even so, the oppressive feeling of his own family's fresh cabbage being eaten by someone else's pig was still there. Therefore, it was better for this son-in-law and grandson-in-law to be casually tidied up. If it didn't go well, he would pull them over and give them a fierce lecture. What a pity, what a pity. Li Hongming tilted his head to look at Li Hongyuan. He slightly narrowed his eyes and then turned to face Lu Chengdi. For Huang's sixth younger brother seems to like the Luo family's third young lady more. You must know that before, Li Hongyuan didn't clearly express his disgust, but he also didn't seem to have come into contact with it. Except for Sun Yijia's disfigurement, which made his emotions more obvious, before the incident, it didn't matter if he was happy or unhappy. However, Lu Chengdi was his father after all. Most of the time, he felt that he didn't care. This time, he sold his son and was worried that he would make trouble again. Now that he saw it, he shouldn't be disgusted. Then, his reaction was a bit strange. At this moment, Lu Chengdi also regarded him as protecting his food. This evil creature had a bad temper. When he was still in the palace, he showed a particularly overbearing side. As long as it was his, regardless of whether he liked it or not, even if it was thrown into a corner to collect dust, others shouldn't even think about touching it. If he wasn't willing to give it up, even if it was completely destroyed, he absolutely wouldn't give it to you. This virtue probably continued to extend to people. That's why he would use a piece of priceless blood jade to exchange for a bracelet that only looked passable. Forget it, as long as he was happy, it was fine as long as he was happy. Anyway, this was the last one. It would be best if he could marry her safely into the family, but if he couldn't. That's right, from the start, Lu Chengdi was not absolutely certain that his son would fall in love with a certain girl. Even if he liked something, it wouldn't be fresh for more than a few days. Hoping that he would be moved, hoping that he would have normal feelings, that would be a joke. Lu Chengdi didn't respond and Li Hongming also retracted his gaze, as if he had just casually mentioned a sentence. Li Hongyuan acted as if he had heard it and continued to study his bracelet, looking at the quality of the gemstones, the craftsmanship of the bracelet. On the contrary, Ruan Ruizhong's gaze fell on Li Hongyuan. His heart was quite complicated. He didn't know what that daughter of his was thinking, to take a fancy to this living king of hell. He knew that his daughter had secretly contacted Jin Qin Wang. Although he didn't know Jin Qin Wang's attitude at that time, 8 or 9 out of 10, he didn't have the slightest feeling. His infatuation was misplaced. He tried his best to suppress it, even making people feel that he was too picky with his son-in-law. Who could understand his painstaking efforts? In the end, it was still inexplicably bestowed marriage by the emperor. Even if he was finally persuaded by his daughter, he was still not optimistic about his daughter's future, breeding a kind of powerless sorrow. The identity of the woman who was tortured to death was quickly confirmed. "What did you say, my daughter's servant girl?" Ruan Ruizhong asked in disbelief. "Grand Secretary Darren, it has already been confirmed. According to my understanding, your daughter's servant girl didn't return after changing her clothes. Your daughter had people looking for her but couldn't find her. After hearing that the female corpse was found, your daughter immediately sent people to confirm. No matter if it was the clothes, hair accessories, or some of the subtle features on the body, it all matched your daughter's missing servant girl." The Grand Commander of the Imperial Guards stated the facts without the slightest bit of emotion. Ruan Ruizhong twisted his eyebrows. According to his wife, the 4 senior servant girls by his daughter's side were all extremely reliable. The one who had served her for a long time had already served her for 7 to 8 years. The one who had served her for a short time had also served her for 3 to 4 years. His daughter had a very good relationship with them. Now that she was gone, he didn't know how sad the girl would be. "Have you found any other clues?" "Not for the time being. It's reasonable to say that no one would kill a mere servant girl for no reason," the Minister of Justice said. "If there's no grudge or enmity, then it's very likely that she suddenly encountered some dark secrets and was killed to silence her. If it's really like this, shouldn't it be ended cleanly? Who would do so many tricks? Looking at the way she died, it's not an exaggeration to say that the murderer has a blood feud with her." No matter how lively they were talking, Li Hongyuan's heart didn't have the slightest ripple. It was also because he didn't find a suitable opportunity to make a move on Ruan Fengfei. She should be the one to suffer now. Li Hongyuan wouldn't kill her easily. What she did to Wan Wan, he would return to her 10-fold or 100-fold. If he didn't let her taste pain and despair and wake her up, how could he let her die so easily if she was always so self-righteous? He wanted her to break down and repent. It would only be over if she regretted coming to this world. However, he didn't know if it was because Ruan Fengfei had done too many guilty things that there were several people around her at all times. Today, there were too many eyes, the Imperial Guards patrolling from time to time, and the blackguards appearing from time to time, so she temporarily escaped the disaster. That servant girl was just a warning to her. It was no wonder, but it was also not bad. She started to deal with the people around her, one by one, and let them pave the way for her on the road to the netherworld. As for the people closest to her, none of them were innocent. After all, they accompanied her day and night. How could they not know Ruan Fengfei's nature? Moreover, no matter how capable and scheming she was only a lady of the boudoir. If no one worked for her, how could she scheme against people again and again? Therefore, these people deserved to die. Even if they were really innocent, they could only be considered unlucky to follow such a master. They should clean their eyes when they were reincarnated in their next life. Speaking of which, even if they didn't know the specific situation in the backyard of the Ruan family, as long as they sent someone to investigate, of course, they had to be very careful. They would find that it was really not simple because the security was very strict. If there were no ghosts, how could there be people like secret guards and even death soldiers? Ordinary prince's mansion couldn't compare to them. It was just that for an official, what did he want to do by raising secret guards and death soldiers? Well, Li Hongyuan knew that Ruan Ruizhong didn't know that there was such a group of people in his family. Because of this, it wasn't easy for Li Hongyuan to place people in the Ruan family. Those who were placed in couldn't be casually used. After all, the risk of being exposed was too great. In contrast, the Luo family was like a sieve. Li Hongyuan could easily grasp the matters of the Luo family. However, it was obvious that the Luo family was considered normal. Even the backyards of those officials who liked to form cliques for personal gain were basically like this. Logically speaking, Ruan Fengfei didn't have the ability to manage the Ruan family's backyard like this, and it wasn't something that could be done overnight. Then, the biggest possibility was the person in charge of the Ruan family's backyard, Ruan Fengfei's mother, Ruan Ruizhong's wife. Li Hongyuan casually cast his gaze outside. The second wife of the Grand Secretary, After Ruan Fengfei heard the situation from the nanny, her face was a little pale. Then, despite being stopped by everyone, she insisted on taking a look for herself. The bailiff guarding the corpse saw that her hands were trembling uncontrollably and her face was drained of blood. She looked very pitiful and wanted to dissuade her, but Ruan Fengfei shook her head firmly. Her hands slowly reached for the cloth covering the corpse. Because her hands were trembling, she seemed to have used all her strength to barely pinch a corner and slowly lifted it. Ah! Ruan Fengfei screamed. Her legs went soft and she fell backwards. Fortunately, the person serving her supported her in time and covered her eyes at the first moment. The bailiff hurriedly covered the cloth back. He already told her not to look. They were used to seeing dead people and were frightened by the corpse's appearance at the first moment. The face was full of scratches. Only the eyes were staring like copper bells, showing the great pain and deep fear before death. Those who were less courageous would probably be scared out of their wits. Ruan Fengfei had done many evil things and was ruthless. She had even killed people with her own hands, but she was still punished badly. Especially those eyes, which were staring straight at her, like a malicious spirit. This was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that those eyes made her suddenly think of a person who was strangled to death by her own hands. She did not know why she suddenly thought of this, but now her breathing was rapid, as if she was about to suffocate. Her eyelids fluttered and she fainted. "Miss." The people around her all showed worried and frightened expressions. Jingwan and the others naturally knew about this matter very quickly. For those who did not know, 9 out of 10 people pitied Ruan Fengfei, and the rest were basically wondering if it was easy for her to get into the water today. Then there were even people who strangely mentioned Li Hongyuan's destiny of bringing misfortune to his wife. After all, this accident happened to his future princess and future concubine. The more they talked about it, the more they felt it was true. Even if Ruan Fengfei's problem was an indirect factor, it could not be denied. This matter even spread to Lu Qingdi's ears. As his father and as the emperor, Lu Qingdi did not suppress the rumors. Except that it was really unnecessary, Lu Qingdi also felt that it had something to do with him. Lu Qingdi looked at Li Hongyuan's indifference, as if a dead pig was not afraid of boiling water. At the same time, he was very angry and helpless. When he looked at Luo Peishan and Ruan Ruiz Hong, his eyes were full of guilt. "Beloved official Ruan and beloved official Luo, why don't you go back and have a look?" This imperial edict came awkwardly, but neither of them refused. Luo Peishan was also very worried about Jingwan. Although Madame Luo sent someone to tell him the situation, it was better to see it with his own eyes. When Jingwan saw Luo Peishan, she stared blankly and was about to get up to greet everyone. However, Luo Peishan waved his hand first, dispensing with all formalities. In passing, he sat next to Jingwan. "How is the girl?" "I've made grandfather worry. Granddaughter is much better." "But grandfather, why did you come back now?" Luo Peishan saw that her complexion was not bad. According to his old wife's temperament, if something really happened, she would not let her sit here. Thus, he did not say much and simply explained the reason why he came back. Jingwan was speechless. Jin Qin Wang had become a scapegoat. However, her suffering was mostly because of him, so he was not wronged? It was just that it had nothing to do with the so-called bringing misfortune to his wife. However, the death of Ruan Fengfei's maidservant, was it Jin Qin Wang's doing? Although he said that he would deal with it, did he know that it was Ruan Fengfei's doing? Moreover, that also meant that he was a quasi-Zifei and had better conditions than her in all aspects. What reason did he have to help her deal with Ruan Fengfei? It was completely illogical. Old Madame Luo called Luo Peishan to the inner room to talk to him alone. Although Ruan Fengfei's name shook the capital, for people like them, that little fame was simply a drizzle. Thus, they did not doubt the truth that his old wife told him. Luo Peishan did not fly into a rage. There was not even an angry expression on his face. Only his eyes were cold. "I originally thought that sitting in this position today was enough. But now, it seems that perhaps I can work harder and go to the cabinet." Old Madame Luo had never asked about his matters in the imperial court and his ambitions. "That maidservant of Miss Ruan, I'm afraid." Luo Peixian and old Madame Luo looked at each other with tacit understanding. They were at least 70% sure that someone was the mastermind. Luo Peixian thought for a while. For the sake of his grandson's protection, he would not pursue the matter of making him angry. The murderer was still being found, but the dragon boat race had been postponed for an hour. It could not be postponed any longer. Thus, today's highlight finally began. Because of the curtains on both sides, the view was blocked. In the midst of the sound of gongs and drums, the curtains on both sides were hung up. The length of the track was 400 feet. According to Jing Wan's estimation, Qiyuan's 1 qi was about a little more than 30 centimeters. 10 zhang was 10 qi, so 400 zhang was about a little more than 1,200 meters long. It wasn't considered short. The location of the imperial tent was 200 feet away from the track, and the Luo family was about 150 feet away from the starting point. It was still a few hundred meters away from the starting point. Moreover, they were sitting, so they could not see anything. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653094 HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is free. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version reading website: bicken.com. Chapter 148. The dragon boat whizzed past in front of their eyes, and a group of children of all sizes chased after the dragon boat along the river bank. They looked at the people who were waiting on the side, and their hearts trembled in fear. If they were to fall and let others step on them. Dragon boats one after another passed by the river in front of the imperial tent. When they were adding to the fun, they all said that Sixth Brother was the best at playing. Now it looks like it wasn't fake at all. It looks like Sixth Brother will definitely win today. Li Hongyuan still had a lazy appearance, completely ignoring the Gong Prince's words. Towards this fourth brother, whose presence wasn't as strong as the other two, but who would jump around from time to time, Li Hongyuan was too lazy to pay attention to him. In the previous life, he was dealt with by Li Hongming, who added fuel to the fire, and was directly imprisoned, not even half a year before he went to the Yellow Springs. So, he didn't need to do anything special, as long as people kept an eye on him, didn't let him out of his control, and then gave him a little push at the right time. The Gong Prince clenched his fists, blue veins popping out on the back of his hands. Obviously, someone's disregard made him very dissatisfied. As the fifth prince, the sickly Gong Prince was in a rare good state of mind today, but now that he was sandwiched between the fourth brother and sixth brother, his heart was clenched in pain. He glanced at his fourth brother. Sixth brother was rarely obedient. Why did they have to find trouble to provoke him? In the end, the one who suffered losses wasn't him, it was his life that was too comfortable. He had to look for trouble. It must be said that the Gong Prince was also miserable. In the court, he belonged to the weakest side, his voice couldn't compare to the other two, plus there was the powerful Yu family, suppressed by all sides. Sometimes he felt that he was living a useless life. His heart was inevitably somewhat twisted. He couldn't tolerate others ignoring him. It would make him feel like he was being looked down upon. With so many ministers present, he felt even more embarrassed. The evil fire in his heart was strong. For a moment he was a little dizzy. Sixth brother, fourth brother is talking to you. Is this the attitude you should have towards your older brother? That voice couldn't help but raise a few notches. Everyone's eyes couldn't help but turn to him. What, this filth, also affected the Gong Prince today? His courage was this fat? The Gong Prince received the baptism of everyone's gazes, and unconsciously puffed out his chest. He actually enjoyed this kind of attention, but he didn't know how many people were calling him an idiot in their hearts. Especially the left commander-in-chief, Qin Tianming, who knew Li Hongyuan's real background. He clicked his tongue in his heart. Li Hongyuan's head was so big, but he wanted to be the biggest in the world. Not to mention whether he could snatch it or not, even if he gave it to Li Hongyuan, he was not afraid of being crushed to death by the hat. Sixth brother. Noisy. Li Hongyuan finally gave him a look, but it was cold without any warmth. What does it have to do with you whether I know how to play or not? Whether I win or lose, does it have anything to do with you? You, on the other hand, are betting a lot. You're just trying to look impressive. Think about how many times you can lose with that little bit of money you have. The Gong Prince abruptly stood up, his eyes looking like he wanted to swallow Li Hongyuan whole. Li Hongyuan sneered. Strong on the outside but weak on the inside. Li Hongyuan. She was about to pounce on him and teach him a lesson. Enough. Old Fourth, sit down for Zhen, you disgraceful thing. The Gong Prince's head was dizzy, but he didn't lose his reason. For a while, he froze in place, and only after a while did he stiffly sit back down. Everyone else had the same thought. Lu Cheng Emperor was biased towards Jin Qin Wang, so biased that there was no end to it. Knowing this, every one of them still brought shame to themselves. However, there were also people who wondered if Jin Qin Wang had some kind of demonic nature. No matter how rational a person was, they couldn't resist him. In the end, it was because he was too infuriating. In the end, it was because of jealousy. He didn't have any ability, but he had too much. Some people thought that among all the princes, Jin Qin Wang's private property was probably more than the sum of the other princes. So, if he didn't have the slightest idea, then he must have seen through the world of mortals, and stepped out of the three realms. Prince Jin's dragon boat, from the very beginning, maintained the advantage, and the further it went, the larger it became. Moreover, it maintained this advantage until the very end. In the last 100 zhang, even if his dragon boat did its best to chase, it could only shorten the distance a little. However, those who were purely watching the fun never cared about who won or lost. They watched the process, felt the atmosphere, and enjoyed the festivity. In addition to the private bet, Li Hongyuan unceremoniously accepted all the other prizes. In addition to the people who bet on him, their things were returned to their original owners, and he also received 3 additional things of almost the same value. In fact, the general situation was the same, but who let him win? There were too many things, and he was happy. In other words, he had money, and he was willful, no one lost. Send the rest to the Luo family. It should be known that, after the prizes were divided, more than half of what was left was still not a small amount. He didn't even bat an eyelid and said to give it away. Sure enough, in front of such a master, you really didn't have any temper. However, didn't this mean that Jin Qin Wang really cared about this fiancé? Sixth brother, can you give me the things that your third sister-in-law bet? Li Hongming said with a smile. After all, Li Hongyuan was a gem in front of him. If he did something like using his own things to exchange, it would inevitably seem deliberate. So, he directly asked for it. First, it showed his attitude towards his Wang Fei, and second, it showed that his and Li Hongyuan's brotherly affection was something that others couldn't compare to. Don't look for Ben Wang. The things had already been given away. Li Hongming smiled, understanding his meaning. His attitude towards the Gong Prince was superior, so even if Jin Qin Wang's temper wasn't good, in fact, it wasn't entirely his fault. If your attitude towards him was better, he would also be more amiable towards you. So, the Gong Prince could only chuckle. The things were picked up and sent away one by one. The things sent to the Luo family were naturally the most eye-catching. After knowing the reason, it caused a lot of commotion. Then, many people turned their eyes to the quiet Yuan family. They thought that even if she wasn't the Zheng Fei, she could still dominate the Wangfu. Now, it seemed that it wasn't the case. Before, Jin Qin Wang didn't do anything, so they didn't think much of it. But now that he did, the difference was too obvious. In fact, most of the time, it wasn't the quantity or quality of the things, but the attitude. Even if Jing Wan took the majority and Ruan Fengfei took a small part, no one would say anything. One side, it was reasonable to be unequal. Thus, Ruan Fengfei, who had always been very popular, attracted gossip at this time. It couldn't be helped, not everyone liked gold and silver. She, Ruan Fengfei, was naturally no exception. It didn't matter if there was no problem, but once there was a problem, she would definitely be hit while she was down. Some people even suspected that Ruan Fengfei didn't enter Jin Qinhuang Fu because she wasn't liked by Jin Qinhuang. After all, the time for her marriage was not long after Sun Yijia. Sun Yijia had already married someone else on the set wedding date. It was reasonable to say that she should enter the family soon after that. But now, Jin Qinhuang had a fiancé, and there was no movement on her side. Was it her turn after the Zhengfei? The Luo family's third young lady hadn't reached marriageable age yet. Wait until next year, Ruan Fengfei would be 17. Moreover, the premise was that the Luo family's third young lady wouldn't be jinxed. So what if her name shook the capital? So what if her talent suppressed the crowd? She was still an old lady who couldn't get married. At this time, Ruan Fengfei had already woken up. If it was someone else, they would probably hide this matter from her. However, her mother took the initiative to tell her before she heard any news. Ruan Fengfei looked at her gorgeous mother. She was almost 40 years old, but she didn't look like she was 31 years old. In the eyes of the world, she was a standard virtuous wife and mother. She treated the children left behind by the first wife as her own. Although Ruan Ruizhong's eldest son was several years older than her, now that he had grandchildren, she had long become a cheap great-grandmother. Her children and grandchildren respected her. Ruan Ruizhong valued her. There was nothing in the Ruan family's backyard that was beyond her control. Serving a man who was still dissatisfied with being her own father, was there really no complaints or regrets? Ruan Fengfei lowered her eyelids. It's just some worldly possessions. Mother, would I still care about those things? It's good that my son understands. The woman gently touched Ruan Fengfei's head. However, Ruan Fengfei didn't know that today was the beginning of all her pain. She only realized that Jin Qinhuang cared about others far more than her. This blow was just a drop in the ocean. When Jingwan received the gift, she didn't know what to say. Did Jin Qinhuang want to roast her or what? However, since it had already been sent, it was naturally impossible to return it. First, she took out the prize that she had bet. There's a mistake. This isn't mine. It was a very rare blood jade. The color was uniform and the head was full of water. Moreover, the head of the water looked very smooth and beautiful. Her bracelet, in terms of value, 10 of them couldn't compare to it. In terms of rarity, there was no need to mention it. That servant girl pursed her lips and smiled. Third young lady, it's this. Wang Ye used this jade to exchange for your bracelet. Jingwan was speechless again. She said that he didn't act according to common sense, but he really could do surprising things from time to time. He did it so openly and honorably. If she refused, she would be petty and at a disadvantage. Thus, she put it away. Her attitude made the person who sent the gift unable to stop praising her. Soon after, Prince Rui's personal attendant respectfully explained his purpose for coming. Jingwan naturally didn't refuse. Which one is it? You can take it back. Because there were only a few things in the brocade handkerchief, it was very conspicuous. As for the other few things, I'll have to trouble Gong Gong to bring them back to the other Wang Fei. Third young lady is too polite. It's not troublesome. Jingwan directly used these things as a reward, letting each of them pick one thing. Among these objects, there were very precious ones, and naturally there were also ordinary ones. The identity of the person who used them determined their level. Those who looked illustrious but didn't live up to their name. On this important occasion, they had no choice but to dress up and go out. Losing one of these things was enough for them to feel heartache, but there was no other way. These people were also sensible. Each of them picked one of the more average value, expressed their thanks, and then left in turn. Looking at the remaining things, to tell the truth, unless it was someone close to her, Jingwan didn't have any interest in using the things that had been used by outsiders, no matter how precious or beautiful they were. To put it bluntly, it was disgusting. Jingwan looked at her brothers and sisters who had basically all returned and smiled. I'm presenting Buddha with borrowed flowers today. See if there's anything you like, pick a few. Pausing, Mama, take a look first, see if there's anything that's against the rules and can't be used. If there is, pick it up first. Yes. Granny Gong nodded and checked the contents of each tray. Young lady, there's nothing here. Generally speaking, this kind of situation wouldn't happen, but there was nothing wrong with being cautious. If because of her, she implicated her family, that was not what Jing Wan was willing to see. What are you still doing? Hurry up and choose. Or is it that none of these things are to your liking? Third sister, after all, these are given to you by Jin Qin Wang, we. Before Luo Jingde finished his words, Luo Jingbua patted him lightly. Since it's a gift to younger sister, it's natural for younger sister to handle it. Even if it's a gift from the emperor, except for some special things, there's nothing that can't be given away. Many of these things, younger sister can't use them. Just treat it as helping her. I won't be polite. As he said this, he reached out and took a fan pendant from the nearest tray. With him taking the lead, the others were no longer restrained and began to happily pick what they liked. Third sister, these things seem to be given to the Luo family, not to you. These things should be returned to the palace. As soon as these words came out, everyone stagnated and looked at Luo Jingying. Speaking of annoying people, sometimes they were really annoying. Who didn't know that it was just an excuse and not a formal New Year's gift? Moreover, it was in the palace. How shameless would she be to say such words? No one asked you to stretch out your hand. Old Madame Luo said coldly. Pick what you want. Why do you care about her? Luo Jingying was originally not very likable. After knowing that she was going to enter the Rue family as a concubine, perhaps they thought of something themselves, or perhaps someone else said something to them. In short, when she went out today, no one paid attention to her. In fact, no one knew what would happen to her in the future. After all, it was the Rue family. As the person most likely to become the new emperor, it was far better to be on good terms with her than to be on bad terms with her. But in fact, no one in the Luo family did so. To a certain extent, this showed the attitude of the two elders towards her. At the same time, it was also the influence of the Luo family. They happily continued to pick things. Between the young girls, they also compared things to each other. However, the things that were suitable for them were few in number and the value was not high. After all, they came from the young girl who angered him. Luo Jingying bit her lip and shrank to one side. Finally, she thought about it and walked to old Madame Luo. Grandmother, granddaughter is not feeling well. I want to go back first. No one has time to send you back. No need to send me back. I can go back by myself. You can't even stay at home for half a day. If you go outside, I'm afraid you won't be able to find your way home. Stay here obediently. How could Luo Jingying not understand the meaning of old Madame Luo's words? Her face turned green and white, and she cursed in her heart. When the other adults heard old Madame Luo's words, they thought in their hearts, as expected, this kind of thing should not lead her child astray. It's right to stay away from her. Digression, this is a desperately trying to catch up with the manuscript, https://www. bicken.com/11/11807/6653095. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version reading website. Bicken.com. Chapter 149. Luo Jingying was furious after being reprimanded by old Madame Luo. After all, she was a girl and naturally wanted to save face. Being reprimanded in front of so many people, not only the masters of the Luo family, but also the servants who served her. She was so ashamed that she wanted to die. These people had always believed in flattering the strong and trampling on the weak. As the old madam of the inner residence, even if she was not in charge of the household, her attitude could almost determine a person's honor, disgrace, or even life and death. Luo Jingying was worried about her own feelings and even wished that the news was good. Because of this, she did not notice that she had actually been excluded from the Luo family. Other than the fact that she was still a member of the Luo family, the treatment she received in the Luo family was no different from that of someone who had been expelled from the family. And after she entered Prince Rui's residence, this point gradually became more and more apparent. In the beginning, she relied on Prince Rui's favor and was arrogant and condescending. When the people in Prince Rui's residence realized that she was actually no different from an orphan, Prince Rui would immediately withdraw his favor. He might even attribute all the fault to Luo Jingying's deceit because everything he did to the Luo family did not achieve his goal. As long as he was cold, he did not say or do anything, and Luo Jingying would fall into hell. With her EQ and IQ, she would definitely be played to death. However, Li Hongming probably would not let her die. After all, she was a daughter of the Luo family. If she died, Luo Peishan would not ignore it for the sake of the Luo family's reputation. Even if he did not want to become enemies with Li Hongming, he was afraid that he would become enemies with him. This was naturally something that Li Hongming did not want to see. The Luo family did not care about this fourth young lady at all, as long as outsiders did not know. Therefore, her surname was Luo. As long as she carried this name, she had to be prepared to be completely exploited. If she lost her value, she would not be far from death. Luo Rongping had already realized that it wasn't safe to use his daughter's marriage. Although he didn't want to admit it, the reason why Prince Rui valued him so much wasn't because of his talent, but because his father was Luo Peishan. A person who was completely liked by the target was a good-for-nothing. Luo Rongping had to find a way to create an illusion that Luo Jingying was not Luo Peishan's favorite granddaughter, but she was not bad. Otherwise, he was worried that he would also become a good-for-nothing. Luo Rongping was lost in thought. Mrs. Lu lowered her head and pulled her handkerchief from time to time. She was somewhat out of tune with the lively atmosphere. Luo Peishan remembered everyone's reaction from the beginning to the end, but did not speak. In any case, Luo Rongping was also his son. He had also spent a lot of energy on him, but Luo Rongping repeatedly refused to listen to his advice. He agreed on the surface but disobeyed in secret. Because he did not help him advance in his career, he harbored hatred in his heart. Now, he even betrayed the family. Sometimes, Luo Peishan even wanted to simply remove him from the Luo family and end all troubles. However, in the end, he still had reason. This kind of thing could not be done casually. Moreover, Luo Rongping's actions could not even be shown on the surface. However, there was one thing that must be done, and that was, he could not be allowed to continue jumping around. But, what should be done specifically? Jing Wan asked people to pick out the good things from the remaining things. Even if she did not use them herself, she could use them as gifts to others, or use them to reward people in the future. As for the remaining things, it was simple and crude to deal with them. Gold and silver were all melted down, and other things like gems were all dismantled and reused to make other things. Jingwan's method, under normal circumstances, was the usual method of dealing with old things. However, these things were sent by Jin Qin Wang. Wasn't it not very good to do so? Jingwan just smiled and did not say a word. Although they did not gather together for the lunch banquet, the things were prepared by each family. However, at this time every year, Lu Chengdi would give out rewards. In addition to the necessary things for the Dragon Boat Festival such as dumplings, he would also give out some dishes as rewards. Every time this kind of special day, it was to reflect who among the courtiers were in the emperor's heart. Of course, Lu Chengdi, due to various considerations, would not completely follow his own likes and dislikes. However, from some small details, everyone would often be able to deduce the truth. It was a big crime to speculate about the emperor's intentions, but as a courtier, if you completely did not think about the emperor's thoughts, you would probably be out of the game if you were not careful. The Luo family was given 6 dishes, and all of them were dishes with good meanings. There were more than 100 dumplings, with all kinds of flavors. It was just that the number of dumplings was a bit too much. It should be known that the emperor gave out food, and everything must be finished. It could not be given to the servants, as that would be seen as looking down on the emperor's prestige. Luo Peishan waved his hand and kept a part of it, and the rest were all given out. Every in-law's family had a share, including the Chen family. In this way, each family did not have much. That was something bestowed by the emperor. How many people wanted it but could not get it? Therefore, when they knew the origin of these dumplings, there was not a single person who was not happy. Each dumpling was divided and divided. What could reach each person's mouth was not a big piece, but it made the people who ate it feel that it was the best delicacy in the world, and they enjoyed eating it very much. Even though it was already May, the rewarded dishes could not escape the cold fate. Moreover, there was no such thing as eating cold food on a hot day. Jing Wan paid special attention to food, so she was not very interested in these dishes. Father, there were only 2 dishes last year, but there are twice as many this year. Is this? Luo Peishan waved his hand. After being promoted to the Minister of Personnel, it is natural to add 1 more dish. The other 3 dishes are for the 3rd daughter. Don't think that your father is so important to the emperor that ordinary people can't compare with him. Well, they all understood. However, these dishes were not designated to anyone. Luo Peishan waved his hand again, and the dishes were divided. More than 2 hours after lunch, Lu Chengdi took the concubines and the princes and princesses back to the palace. As for the murderer of the murder case, there was still no clue, which made Lu Chengdi a little annoyed. It also proved that this was not an ordinary murder case. However, no one could say for sure what the reason was. In addition, his son and his officials had a private bet with each other. The new hatred and the old hatred added together, which naturally made him angry. One of his good sons, because he lost, let people beat the participants of the competition half to death, and then directly drag them away without asking any more questions. If something went wrong, these people might lose their lives. Lu Chengdi couldn't wait to tie him up and beat him fiercely. This idiot, didn't he know how to deal with it privately? Yes, in Lu Chengdi's view, his fault was not that he beat people, but that he beat people at the wrong time and place, which was easy to be criticized. Just wait and see. He would definitely be impeached by the imperial censor tomorrow. Everyone knew that Lu Chengdi was in a bad mood now, so naturally, no one went to find trouble with him. Others didn't find trouble with him, but God continued to make trouble for Lu Chengdi. Before Lu Chengdi stepped into the palace gate, he heard the report again. Lord Ruan's beloved daughter was on the way back to the mansion. The horse was frightened and the carriage overturned. Miss Ruan was thrown out of the carriage and almost died under the horse's hooves. Lu Chengdi was shocked and angry. Have you checked whether it was an accident or man-made? Replying to your majesty, this lowly one has not investigated. However, after asking the Ruan family, they were very certain that it was an accident. The horse that pulled the carriage was ill and the coachman who raised the horse did not discover it in time. The horse suddenly became ill and went crazy today, causing the accident. The commander of the Imperial Guards answered dutifully. Lu Chengdi frowned, but he looked relieved. No one saw it, or they might imagine that there was a love and hate drama between Lu Chengdi and Ruan Fengfei, and Lu Chengdi made his son a cuckold. How is Ruan Fengfei? Your Majesty, after Miss Ruan was thrown out of the carriage, she has been in a coma, and her face may have been hurt. Under normal circumstances, this matter would not be reported to Lu Chengdi immediately, but because Ruan Fengfei's maid had been tortured and killed before, it was not that no one suspected that the other party's target might be Ruan Fengfei. Now that this happened, it was inevitable that there would be doubts. In fact, when this matter was reported to Lu Chengdi, it was to ask whether this matter needed to be investigated thoroughly with the previous murder case. Don't worry about it. Since the Ruan family said it was an accident, he would not do anything unnecessary. Lu Chengdi ordered the chamberlain to tell the empress to send someone to check. In fact, it was more subtle to see if Ruan Fengfei's face was really hurt. And how serious was the injury? After returning to the palace, the empress left first with the excuse that she was busy with palace affairs. Imperial concubine Su stood beside Lu Chengdi. Looking at Lu Chengdi's frown, she reached out and gently stroked it, very worried. Lu Chengdi held her hand, and there was an atmosphere between the two that outsiders could not get in. This made those favored concubines who wanted to get close to Lu Chengdi feel jealous and embarrassed at the same time. Thinking of Imperial concubine Su's means, they could only give up resentfully. When the Imperial concubine and Lu Chengdi were together, the palace servants consciously retreated a little. Lu Chengdi held Imperial concubine Su's hand and slowed down as if taking a stroll. As they walked, he suddenly sighed. What did I say? Ruan Fengfei, this girl, might also have an accident. Look, it's true. Imperial concubine Su remembered the conversation she had with Lu Chengdi. She had an accident, and it was not Yuan'er who did anything to her. How can Yuan'er be blamed? This is too unfair. If I were to say, it's all their bad luck. Lu Chengdi firmly believed that his evil son had jinxed his wife, but Imperial concubine Su had always been unwilling to admit it. Imperial concubine Su, who had always been gentle in front of him, often talked back to him when she talked about that evil son's marriage. Lu Chengdi laughed. This is not the first time this has happened. Even now, you still refuse to admit it. It's nonsense. Why do I have to admit it? I have a hunch that this time, the Luo family's third miss will be able to marry Yuan'er smoothly. At that time, I will naturally shut those who say that Yuan'er jinxes his wife. Those people included him, the emperor. Although your majesty has decreed the marriage, the 3 letters and 6 rites have not been completed yet. Your majesty, this concubine will not accompany you any longer. This concubine has to go and instruct the people in the Ministry of Internal Affairs to quickly settle the marriage. She did not wait for Lu Chengdi's response and hurriedly left after bowing. Lu Chengdi stood in the same place, confused. In the end, he could only sigh helplessly. When everyone returned to the Ruan family, whether it was the masters or the servants, they were all silent. There were not many people left in Ruan Fengfei's room. Other than Ruan Ruizhong and his wife, there were only a few people who served Ruan Fengfei. Among them, 2 servant girls were still kneeling upright. The imperial physician had already left. Ruan Ruizhong looked at his wife sitting by the bed and silently holding his daughter's hand. His heart ached. He walked forward and patted her shoulder. Madam, don't worry. Didn't the imperial physician say that our daughter's injuries aren't very serious and will recover soon? The injury on her face isn't a big deal. Although it can't be completely healed, it won't be very obvious. Old Madame Ruan, who was as beautiful as a young woman, raised her head to look at Ruan Ruizhong. She forced a smile. Master, I am fine. You are busy. Later, your majesty will hold a banquet in the palace. You should go. What his wife said was true. Ruan Ruizhong could only leave for the time being. After returning from the palace, I will come to see Fengfei. When Ruan Ruizhong left, the expression on old Madame Ruan's face changed completely. You two go and receive your punishment. Her voice was bone-chilling. The 2 servant girls couldn't help but tremble. However, they didn't dare to say a single word. After they left, another man who looked slightly thin and weak with no sense of presence came in and stood respectfully beside Madame Ruan. Master, are we really going to let this matter go? Not over, what else can we do? Old Madame Ruan gritted her teeth and said. Ever since she married Ruan Ruizhong, she had never been so aggrieved. The other party dared to act so brazenly. They must have some understanding of us. The fact that they were able to hinder all of you who were escorting Fengfei is the best proof. The enemy is in the dark while we are in the light. You should know that once the matter of the Ruan family's backyard is exposed, what will happen to us? Although we can't do anything on the surface, we must investigate clearly in the dark. What is the origin of the other party? She thought that everything was under control. However, she didn't expect that there was such a terrifying enemy hiding in the dark. If everything was under the other party's nose, she shuddered at the thought. Master, rest assured. This little one will investigate clearly as soon as possible. And you can go. This little one will retire. Old Madame Ruan sat quietly for a moment. Feng Fei, don't worry. Mother will avenge you. Ruan Ruizhong believed that Ruan Feng Fei was an accident so easily? Yes. Not to mention that he didn't think that anyone would deliberately harm his daughter because there was really no reason. Furthermore, his second wife took care of everything in the Ruan family so well that he didn't need to spend any effort. His trust in his second wife was a little blind, which led to him not knowing anything about the matters in the backyard. It must be said that such a shrewd and wise man like him had fallen into such a trap. Unfortunately, he didn't know about it himself. Who knew what kind of reaction he would have when he found out in the future? Who knew if he would be pitiful or sad? Perhaps it was because he had never suffered a loss from a woman that he would be like this. And in Jin Qin Wang Fu, Li Hongyuan sat in the shadows of his bedroom, making his whole person somewhat blurry and unreal. Master, the ointment has already been applied on Ruan Feng Fei's face. It will take effect in a month. At that time, a black scar will grow on her face like a centipede. And Zhou stood beside an E and said respectfully. Li Hongyuan faintly made a sound of N. Master, this subordinate has something that I don't understand. Today's matter will inevitably alert the enemy. What Ben Wang wants is precisely to alert the enemy. A venomous snake that hid too well. Once it was startled, it wouldn't let it swim out. Instead, it would shrink even tighter and become more cautious. Because it knew who the enemy was in a place it didn't know and how strong they were. Today's matter made it understand that they were definitely not weak. Also, it wasn't easy to deal with Ruan Feng Fei using conventional methods, so it was better to use unconventional methods. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653096. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version reading website. Bicken.com. Chapter 150. Madame Ruan probably wouldn't have thought that the enemy hiding in the dark, under her careful arrangement, not only hurt her daughter, but also let her witness the other party's people take out the eye ointment with something added. Then, she personally applied the ointment on her daughter's face. If she knew all of this, who knew how she would react? After returning to the Luo family, Jingwan felt a lot more relaxed. She didn't have to continue pretending to be sick. For a healthy baby, it was a great challenge for her to pretend to be sick. And her most painful experience was probably the time when she was in the capital. She had carriage sickness. There was nothing more painful than this. After Jingwan regained her energy, she started to think about how to take revenge. To be honest, she was really lacking in this skill. However, as the saying goes, a rabbit will bite when forced. Jingwan thought that she couldn't be worse than a rabbit, right? However, the implementation of this matter was indeed not that simple. First of all, Ruan Feng Fei's method was too secretive. Her image to the outside world was too good. Even if they pointed her out, they would not get the desired result. More importantly, there was no evidence. This was also the reason why she and the two elders of the Luo family kept it a secret even though they knew who the instigator was. However, in this way, if she took action against Ruan Feng Fei, then she would become the evil person who would be blamed by others. And if she wanted to do it perfectly and not be discovered by others, it required the right time, the right place, and the right people. For such an opportunity, when you didn't have the ability to create it, you had to wait patiently and prepare in advance. Jingwan inexplicably looked up at the sky with some sadness. It was very tiring to plot against the people under the same roof, and to plot against the people in another family's backyard was a huge project. She wanted to ask Ruan Feng Fei, in order to plot against her, how much effort did she spend? Was it tiring? Was it worth it? Jingwan thought again. Since she had already determined that Ruan Fengfei was the kind of person with a twisted personality, then as long as she could achieve her goal, she would probably feel that it was worth it no matter how many things she did. What's more, it was just to plot against Jingwan. If she succeeded, the whole Luo family would be implicated. The additional achievement value was simply too great. So, how could it not be worth it? However, if the plan didn't succeed, it would only make her crazier. Looking at Jingwan's expression, Nanny Gong basically knew what Jingwan was thinking. Miss Ruan Fengfei's carriage fell over on the way back. She was injured and fainted. Her face was injured. Even God is helping you take revenge, so you don't have to think about the other side anymore. Jingwan was stunned. Then she said calmly, "He's not dead." This time, it was Nanny Gong's turn to be surprised. Even if Luo Jingying was like that, Miss didn't want her to die. She didn't even have much hatred for her. Although Miss said that it took feelings to hate someone, she just ignored them. Ruan Fengfei was definitely the first person who could make Jingwan want her to die. It could be seen that Ruan Fengfei really stepped on Miss's reverse scale this time. Yes, Miss had always cared about her family, more than herself. Of course, in Miss's eyes, her family probably didn't include everyone in the Luo family, but only a few. Her heart was soft and indifferent. She could care about the whole world, but she could also care about a few people. Feelings were mutual. She had done this to the extreme. However, once someone received her sincere treatment, they would probably feel that they were the happiest person in the world. Miss wanted Ruan Fengfei to die. In fact, it was not difficult for the prince to make up his mind to kill someone. What needed to be looked at was the price to pay and the consequences. Miss, if it doesn't affect you at all, do you want her to die directly or suffer a lot before she dies? Jingwan looked at Nanny Gong. Although Nanny Gong still looked serious, Jingwan felt that her question was very strange. Under normal circumstances, she wouldn't ask this question. However, Jingwan's answer to this question was still very clear. It's too easy for a person with such a vicious mind to die so casually. Based on her meticulous and skillful way of doing things, and the fact that she was able to target others as if they were her prey despite having no enmity with them, I'm definitely not the first person to do so. For those who have been hurt by her, it's too much to just let her die to atone for her sins. Nanny Gong nodded and understood. Judging from the prince's plan, he wouldn't easily take Ruan Fengfei's life. It was good that Mrs. idea didn't conflict with his plan. Jingwan always felt that it was impossible to have a twisted mind. Well, she couldn't be 100% sure about this. However, even if there were congenital perverts, there should be very few of them. Ruan Ruizhong was in the center of the country's centralized power. The possibility of him not giving himself away at all was infinitely close to zero. Then, the person who caused Ruan Fengfei's character was more likely to be her mother. Nanny, do you know the wife of the Prime Minister? Madame Ruan? When Jingwan heard Nanny Gong call her that, she was immediately embarrassed. It wasn't that she hadn't seen her before. She looked really young, but she turned out to be a madam. Well, it was because Ruan Ruizhong's seniority was high. If she married him, she would probably be a madam from the beginning. Although she didn't have to play the leveling game of young madam, and madam, for a young woman, probably no one was willing to go all the way. Facing the daughters-in-law, who were much older than her, and hearing them call her madam, Jingwan actually wanted to ask how big the shadow in the heart of Madame Ruan was in the heart. However, no matter what she thought, she couldn't reveal a single word. Jingwan lit a row of candles for her in her heart. Everyone said that she was the most virtuous person in the whole capital. Nanny Gong briefly told Jingwan what everyone knew. Of course, she was now very sure that she was just like her daughter. It was fake. Nanny Gong didn't know the real situation of Ruan Fengfei, so naturally, she didn't know the real situation of her mother. After hearing Nanny Gong's words, Jingwan's first reaction was that she was just like Ruan Fengfei. She was too perfect to be real. This kind of person was most likely problematic. Therefore, Jing Wan ruled out the slight possibility that Ruan Fengfei was a congenital abnormality. However, in the short term, Ruan Fengfei probably didn't have time to come out and cause trouble, which also meant that she couldn't take revenge. If she couldn't see this person, there was naturally no need to talk about anything else. Therefore, if the enemy didn't show up, it was useless to think about revenge. Jing Wan wouldn't let her enemy affect her life, but Ruan Fengfei would never be so important to her. Later, Madame Luo sent more mugwort and other things to Jing Wan's yard. She also ordered her to always carry the Buddha beads given by Master Liaochen with her in the future. Even if it didn't match her clothes, she had to use another way to carry it. Jing Wan knew Madame Luo's intention, so she didn't object on this matter. In fact, Jing Wan liked the Buddha beads very much. 2 days passed in a hurry. Luo Jingying was about to go out. The Luo family didn't decorate with lanterns or decorations, and there were no guests. It was quiet, just like any other day. There was a small sedan chair with green cloth parked at the side door of the Luo family. Perhaps to show that they attached great importance to Luo Jingying, those who came to the Luo family to pick her up were a dignified nanny, a steward, and 4 maids by Li Hongming's side. It was reasonable to say that the nanny should bring people to pick her up, but the Luo family refused. It meant that they didn't want to trouble the people of the prince's mansion. They couldn't blame them if they didn't go in. Although it was because they didn't attach great importance to the girl, they didn't think much about it because it was the Luo family's idea. However, they didn't know that in the 3rd branch of the Luo family, Luo Jingying was having a big argument with her mother for the first time in history. To be more precise, it was Luo Jingying who was throwing a tantrum one-sidedly. Because in the end, Luo Jingying only brought a bag of 5,000 taels of silver, most of which were given by Prince Rui. When Luo Jingqiang got married, she had 5,000 taels of silver as her savings. Now, without dowry, she only had 5,000 taels of silver. She couldn't even compare to Luo Jingqiang, who was born of a concubine. How could she let it go? Naturally, she flew into a rage and smashed everything. What could you do with 5,000 taels of silver? If it was in an ordinary family, 5,000 taels of silver was enough for 4 people to eat for a lifetime. But in an ordinary family, the dowry for a daughter of an official was about 3,000 to 5,000 taels of silver. To a certain extent, this was already very good. It could be seen that the Luo family had accumulated a certain amount of wealth over the past 200 to 300 years. This sentence was not just empty words. However, in a real rich family, 5,000 taels of silver couldn't buy a set of decent head ornaments, nor could it buy a few boxes of the best rouge and face powder. Of course, Luo Jingying didn't know that the new boutique set of the Rouge Pavilion could only be bought with 5,000 taels of silver. Therefore, in Luo Jingying's eyes, this amount of money was like sending away a beggar. Mrs. Lu sneered, "If I really give a beggar 5,000 taels of silver, his fate can be changed. He will be grateful to me. Giving you 5,000 taels of silver is like throwing a meat bun to a dog. Take it or leave it. If you don't want it, then get out. Our 3rd branch can't use up 5,000 taels of silver in a year. It just so happens that I'm short of money now." Luo Jingying looked at her mother with a broken face. Although Mrs. Lu had been ignoring her these days, she thought that Mrs. Lu was still angry and wouldn't ignore her. But today, she really understood that her mother really didn't care about her. When Mrs. Lu knew that she was going to enter Prince Rui's mansion, she was very happy and wanted to prepare things for her. But now, she was ruthless to this extent? From childhood to adulthood, was her mother's love for her all fake? Mrs. Lu's attitude towards Luo Jingying was actually not too abrupt. After being disappointed again and again, she was a little cold-hearted. But Luo Jingying didn't notice it. And Mrs. Lu didn't notice it herself. After finding out that Luo Jingying was an ungrateful wretch, she suddenly burst out and acted ruthlessly and ruthlessly. Good. Since it's like this, from now on, we'll break off all ties. Even if you kneel at my feet and beg me in the future, don't think that I'll call you mother again. Luo Jingying angrily picked her up and turned to leave. Luo Jingying indeed didn't call Mrs. Lu mother in front of her again. It wasn't like she said, even if Mrs. Lu knelt and begged, she wouldn't call her mother, but she didn't have the chance. In the future, when she was in pain and despair, how many days and nights did she call her mother, but she never got a response. Thinking back to the days in the Luo family, how happy it was. Even if she was humiliated by Luo Jingwan, it made her feel nostalgic. But at that time, she didn't even have the qualifications to mention Luo Jingwan. Even the people in Prince Rui's mansion said, "Jin Qin Wang Fei has a cousin like you, it's really shameful." Along the way, many servants saw Luo Jingying, but they only took a few glances and then went on with their own things. They treated her as if she didn't exist, let alone stop and greet her. Luo Jingying's gaze flew towards them like a knife. Unfortunately, she met people who also had a small temper and would even show a provocative smile at her. Luo Jingying still had reason, so she didn't pounce on them and tear them apart. However, she didn't want to stay in this place for a moment longer. Thus, she quickened her pace, but secretly vowed in her heart that in the future, she would definitely return here with an aloof attitude and kill all the people who were disrespectful to her. It wasn't until she was about to leave that Luo Jingying slowed down her pace and tidied up her attire. At this moment, the things that Mrs. Lu had taught her before seemed to have returned. Even if she was kneeling, she couldn't show her inferiority. She had to be neither servile nor overbearing. Even if her attire was a bit poor, she had to maintain a perfect bearing. Thus, unconsciously, Luo Jingying learned the behavior of Jingwan. Luo Jingying didn't realize how deep Jingwan's influence on her was. The nanny sent by Li Hongming was given the same surname as his princess, Lu. She had been serving Li Hongming since he was a child. When she was old enough, she didn't go out of the palace. Instead, she combed herself into a nanny and served Li Hongming all the time. She was loyal to Li Hongming and followed his will as her first creed. Even Li Hongming respected her. Therefore, although this nanny was a servant, she was probably the most powerful woman in Prince Rui's mansion except for Princess Rui. Princess Rui didn't dare to neglect her, and the other concubines could only fawn on Li Hongming. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653097. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken.com. Bicken.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 151. Although Nanny Lu had such doubts, she didn't ask. It was better for Prince Rui's mansion to not bring anyone with them. The servants would be arranged by them. From the beginning, all the initiative would be in their hands. This person would also be under their control. Therefore, they didn't need to care about her actual situation. Whether it was good or bad, it was all up to Prince Rui's mansion. Although Luo Jingying was a little stupid, she didn't want people in Prince Rui's mansion to see that she was not liked by her family. That would be too embarrassing. Although she believed that Prince Rui wouldn't dislike her because of this, it would be better for her to get along well with her family. Luo Jingying was confident and a little conceited. However, she had been ignoring the uneasiness in her heart. She repeatedly clamored to others to show that she would be unspeakably noble in the future. She was also using this method to hypnotize herself over and over again. Only in this way could she maintain her pride. Because everyone had their own thoughts, Luo Jingying directly got into the sedan chair without saying anything after a reserved and shy salute. When the curtain of the sedan chair was put down, the smile on Luo Jingying's face could no longer be maintained. There was no doubt that she yearned for the prince's mansion. However, she was now sitting in this small sedan. The people who were just a short distance away were all strangers to her. She felt an inexplicable sense of panic. Subconsciously, she turned sideways and lifted the curtain of the window. She looked at the door that was gradually shrinking. Nanny Lu subconsciously wanted to scold Luo Jingying. However, when she saw Luo Jingying's longing expression and the tears that she held back, she didn't say anything in the end. Perhaps this was the last time they would see each other, so she didn't need to be so strict. On the other hand, Prince Rue had invited his brothers to a banquet today. Even though he had only invited a concubine, he was still very happy. After all, the brothers were often on good terms with one another, using various excuses to get to know each other. However, after knowing the identity of this concubine, it was obvious that he wasn't just looking for an excuse to invite them to a banquet. Under these circumstances, Li Hongming was able to silently carry the young lady of the Luo family back to the Fu. No one would believe that there was no problem here. Especially Prince Kong. The way he looked at Li Hongming was as if Prince Rue had snatched away his woman. Li Hongming's smile was still there, and there was even a hint of provocation in it. He didn't steal his woman. Prince Kong was so angry that he almost smashed his cup. Luo Rongping, how dare he give his daughter to his biggest enemy when he swore to be loyal to him? Anyway, even if they were brothers, they would only pretend in front of Lu Chengdi occasionally. Prince Kong flicked his sleeves and left. Prince Kang's hardcore brothers also made excuses to leave one after another. Li Hongming just smiled and sent them off. He had no intention of asking them to stay. As long as he achieved his goal, he didn't need to care about anything else. As for how Luo Rongping would appease his good brother's anger, that was his own business. If he couldn't even handle such a small matter, how could he work for him? After Prince Kong returned to the Fu, he directly summoned Luo Rongping without saying anything. He even made a big fuss. His intention was actually similar to Li Hongming's. Therefore, a small matter that was originally a small matter was made into a big deal by these two brothers. However, because of the Luo family's position, there were many twists and turns. Other people didn't express their opinions on this matter for the time being. Besides, they actually wanted to know when the Grand Secretary offended the Minister of the Ministry of Personnel. After all, Luo Peishan's actions against Ruan Ruiz Hong were too obvious. Except for some things that didn't need to be considered at all, every time Ruan Ruiz Hong raised an opinion, Luo Peishan would hold a completely leftist opinion. In addition, Ruan Ruizhong's students were also implicated by Luo Peishan. Those who were related to Ruan Ruiz Hong and had a close relationship with him were all people that Luo Peishan focused on taking care of. Therefore, no matter which side these people belonged to, there were signs of danger everywhere. After all, Ruan Ruiz Hong was someone who had been in the officialdom for decades. The people who were close to him were not only his relatives and friends, but also many of his students. They were inexplicably implicated by him. Even if Luo Peishan was doing things by the book, he didn't do anything to anyone else but him. As soon as Ruan Ruiz Hong discovered that the situation was wrong, he summoned Luo Peishan. As the saying goes, even if you die, you have to know the reason why. Unfortunately, all he got in return was Luo Peishan's mockery and ridicule. As for the specific reason, he didn't get a single word. No matter how astute the Grand Secretary was, without the slightest hint, he still couldn't guess the reason. However, Ruan Ruiz Hong still knew Luo Peishan's character. Even if he was an old fox in the officialdom, he still adhered to some principles and kept some bottom lines. Because of this, Ruan Ruiz Hong didn't take any action for the time being. Since he couldn't get the reason from Luo Peishan, he would investigate from other places. However, this matter must be done quickly. Otherwise, when Luo Peishan presented some evidence of his crimes to Lu Chengdi, he would suffer immeasurable losses. Even if he was neutral, Qi Yuan's officialdom couldn't be supported by one person. Prince Kong had never been a good-tempered person. When he saw Luo Rongping, he directly kicked him. If it weren't for someone who stopped him, even if Luo Rongping didn't die, he would be half dead. Luo Rongping's explanation to Prince Kong was naturally to push all the blame to Li Hongming, saying that Prince Rue had abducted his daughter. As for the matter that his daughter was going to marry into Prince Rue's mansion, he didn't know until 2 days ago. At that time, he came to see Prince Kong. "You didn't see me, so it has nothing to do with me." Prince Kong also knew from the gatekeeper that Luo Rongping did see him, and he did refuse to see him. Li Hongyi would never admit that Li Hongming's complacency today had a small part to do with him. Although Li Hongyi let Luo Rongping leave, the suspicion in his heart didn't disappear. In other words, after Luo Rongbing's daughter entered Li Hongming's backyard, it was impossible for him to completely trust him. In-laws were the most mainstream way to build relationships. Therefore, Prince Kong issued an order to keep an eye on Luo Rongbing. Once the evidence of his betrayal was found, Prince Kong would never let him go. Li Hongming knew from the beginning that Luo Rongbing's daughter entered his backyard, and he was purely a chess piece to contain the Luo family. Luo Peishan, who was in such a high position, was not trusted by his good brother because of his alienation, let alone Luo Rongbing. Therefore, it was a big joke for him to be a nail in Li Hongyi's camp. He didn't care at all how Li Hongyi would deal with Luo Rongbing. He even hoped that Li Hongyi would be as ruthless as possible. As for Li Hongyuan and Jingwan's marriage, under the supervision of imperial concubine Su, the auspicious date was quickly set. Because Li Hongyi was the eldest son, when he married, the things he used, no matter what, were naturally the best. The rest of the princes would more or less be subtracted from this foundation. For example, Li Hongming, Li Hongyuan, who had a mother who was favored and had a high status, at most, would be subtracted by one level. The imperial household department had long been familiar with preparing the betrothal gifts for Jin Qin Wang. It was still the same as before, so the speed was very fast. However, just when they thought that everything was ready, the living king of hell personally came. After taking a look at the things, he said one word, exchange. Then, he directly left his personal attendant behind. Then, Mu Gonggong smilingly watched the imperial household department exchange things. Once, twice, thrice, Mu Gonggong shook his head. The people of the imperial household department were very irritable, but they couldn't vent a single word. They could only curry favor with Mu Gonggong in hopes of giving pointers. Then, Mu Gonggong mercifully gave a sentence. Wang Ye was not short of money, and even more not short of good things. They understood. Wasn't it because the quantity and quality of the things they prepared were insufficient? But even if they understood, they wanted to curse their mother even more. There was no other way. This kind of thing was not something they could decide. They could only report it to the Empress. The Empress was naturally very tolerant. With a wave of her hand, Jin Qin Wang could do whatever he wanted. With this sentence, they were relieved. Then, they exchanged things one by one. The quantity doubled, and tripled. When Mu Gonggong nodded his head in satisfaction, the people of the imperial household department were simply about to collapse. However, when they saw the final list, their hands trembled and their hearts trembled. This was probably more than all the other Wang Ye's gifts added together. After thinking about it, they finally gave the list to the Empress again. After the Empress saw it, she was silent for a long time. According to the moral character of that living king of hell, if they didn't satisfy him, would he prepare it himself? A dignified Qin Wang had to prepare betrothal gifts himself. The emperor's face didn't need any more. But this thing was really too much. In terms of value, it was even more than the betrothal gifts of the Qin Wang Fei. Finally, the list was handed over to Lu Chengdi. For this kind of thing, Lu Chengdi naturally wouldn't care. He didn't even look at the list. On the contrary, Su Gue Fei felt that it was a bit inappropriate. Moreover, for what reason did her son do this? Was it really because he fancied Luo San Gunyong? Or was there some other reason? On the day of the wedding, the people of Jin Qin Wang Fu sent over a pair of wild geese. Not only were they full of spirit, they were taller than the average wild geese. Their feathers were also smooth and bright. Looking at the two pure gold wild geese, no matter how gorgeous they were also dead objects without the slightest bit of spiritual energy. The pure gold wild geese were naturally abandoned. The Luo family, the wedding invigilator, presented the ceremonial items in the courtyard. When the Luo family saw these things, they were speechless for a while. As the saying goes, rich people are willful. But to be willful to the extent of Jin Qin Wang, it was really rare. Jing Wan faintly felt that something seemed to be out of control. https://www.beacon.com/11/11807/6653098 HTML chapter error. Click here to report, exempt from registration. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bikan.com. Biku Gur mobile reading website, bikan.com. Chapter 152. However, compared to Luo Peishan's dissatisfaction with Jin Qinhuang, old Madame Luo's acceptance was quite high. In fact, his current actions were similar to Duchess Ding's, but the nature was different. Jin Qinhuang drew hatred for Jinghuan, but he could withstand it. Even if those people were angry, they could not burn Jinghuan. His fundamental purpose was to give the best to his wife, and the most, in a word, to give his wife face. It was reasonable to say that for the imperial family, there were many things that had to be done according to the rules. Jin Qinhuang's Nikkei was too excessive, so it was not surprising that Jin Qinhuang was impeached. However, this matter was related to this living king of hell. The so-called impeachment was just a formality. It was all because of his duty. What happened in the end was Lu Chengdi's business. At this time, Lu Chengdi knew what that evil spawn had done. Even if you want to add something, you should take it easy. Moreover, the Nikkei was so generous now. What about the betrothal gifts in the future? Are you going to empty the imperial household department? Raising such a prodigal son, it was sad to think about it. In the end, the matter was left unsettled because His Majesty had personally looked over Nikkei's list. At that time, he did not have any objections. Naturally, he could not contradict himself now, so Lu Chengdi took the blame himself. However, Lu Chengdi, who took the blame like this, was unhappy and pulled his evil spawn son over to reprimand him. However, a certain someone was bored to death. Lu Chengdi scolded him and felt that it was boring. Then, for some reason, his gossipy spirit came. "Do you really like the third miss of the Luo family?" Li Hongyuan glanced at him indifferently. Where did imperial father come to such a conclusion? Was Nikkei's generosity not enough? Lu Chengdi narrowed his eyes and looked at his son, who had a perfect appearance. If he liked her, his performance before the marriage was bestowed was not the least bit like that. Moreover, according to his temperament, if he liked her, he would have snatched her long ago. Why would he wait until now? What did they do to make you unhappy? Looking at Lu Chengdi, Li Hongyuan sneered in his heart. Even if Lu Chengdi had been deeply in love and had been infatuated with thousands of possibilities, he still could not figure out the real reason. In Lu Chengdi's eyes, as long as he could be happy, nothing else mattered. If these Nikkei's could make him happy, it did not matter even if there were more. Therefore, this kind of external things would not be a display of his son's concern. Lu Chengdi was just that self-righteous. He only knew how to use his tyrannical power to plunder what he wanted. Everyone said that he, Li Hongyuan, lived the most unbridled life, doing whatever he wanted. But in reality, that was not the case. He did not have the absolute right to be unbridled. He also had many scruples. However, he was not far from that day. The next day, a small storm was stirred in the seemingly normal capital because Master Liaochen had entered the capital. Master Liaochen had wandered the world but rarely entered the capital. Even an imperial edict might not be able to invite him. Of course, Lu Chengdi did not need to use this to show his authority. Only a fool would do such a thing. In the eyes of the public, Master Liaochen was a living Buddha. If they could invite him home, it would not only bring them face, it would also be a great blessing. However, before Lu Chengdi did anything, no one dared to act rashly. As expected, Lu Chengdi sent someone to invite Master Liaochen to the palace as soon as he heard the news. Master Liaochen did not refuse and gladly accepted. Lu Chengdi received the news personally at the palace gates. Lu Chengdi put aside his official business for the time being. He wanted to listen to Master Liaochen's Buddhist teachings. Even in the palace, Master Liaochen was no different from when he was in the temple. Therefore, he did not object to Lu Chengdi's request. Others could also listen if they wanted. In the end, there were a few more concubines, princes, and even old princes from the previous generation. For 2 hours, no matter how patient or impatient they were, they all maintained a calm expression. It didn't matter if they were faking it or if Master Liaochen really had the ability to calm them down. In short, Lu Qingdi was very satisfied with the result. Master Liaochen would stay in the capital for 3 days. During this time, the Empress had already arranged a place for him to stay. Lu Qingdi knew that Master Liaochen wouldn't allow him to stay. State affairs were more important. But before he left, he hesitated. "Master, my 6 sons' marriage hasn't been going well. Could you please match their 8 characters this time?" This was Master Liaochen's purpose in coming to the capital. Naturally, he nodded. Lu Qingdi was overjoyed. He hurriedly ordered someone to bring Jing Wan and Li Hongyuan's birth characters. Master Liaochen looked at their birth characters. He'd promised Li Hongyuan to give him a splendid match after his marriage with Jing Wan was settled. Even if it was inappropriate, he was willing to do something for the sake of the world. But after looking at their birth characters, he didn't need to do anything extra. These two were truly meant to be together. Lu Qingdi and noble consort Su were both uneasy. What if it was still inappropriate? A match made in heaven, a marriage that comes once in 1,000 years. Master Liaochen smiled warmly. "Master, are you serious?" Lu Qingdi was overjoyed, but quickly recovered. "Please forgive me, Master. I was just overjoyed. I didn't mean to question you. It's fine." Lu Qingdi felt like a boulder had been lifted from his heart. He didn't have to worry about that bastard's marriage anymore. Speaking of the previous marriages, the birth characters hadn't been bad. It was just that there had been problems every time, so much so that the later statements had been reserved. Lu Qingdi didn't bother to ask if they were true or not. But Master Liaochen was different. He could be suspected of anyone, but not Master Liaochen. So far, Master Liaochen's words had never been wrong. Lu Qingdi was in such a good mood that he felt the wind under his feet as he walked. What happened after that was logical and there was nothing wrong with it. After the ceremony, the Luo family received a letter of engagement from the imperial family. All that was left was to wait for Jingwan's hairpin ceremony. It wasn't that Lu Qingdi hadn't considered marrying his son before Jingwan's hairpin ceremony. It was the same reason why he'd quickly set the wedding date for Li Hongyuan and son Yijia. A long delay could lead to trouble. But thinking about how the wedding date had been so rushed, he decided to let nature take its course. Now that he'd taken Master Liaochen's reassurance, there was even less of a hurry. This time, Madame Luo was personally taking care of the letter of engagement. Her daughter-in-law and whatnot couldn't care less. Master Liaochen's comments quickly spread. Those who'd bet on Jingwan's death began to reconsider. Was it too late to withdraw their bets? After all, it was obvious that he was losing in all sorts of ways. But taking back what they'd already given away? Haha, they were daydreaming. Everyone believed in this marriage made in heaven, but there was always someone who didn't. Ruan Fengfei, who had always had a smooth sailing life since she was born, easily got rid of all the obstacles in her way. However, ever since she met Luo Jingwan, it was as if she had met her nemesis. Not only did everything go wrong, she even hurt her face. That's right, she blamed her accident on Jingwan. Ruan Fengfei looked at her face in the mirror. Her face was distorted like a ghost. She wasn't Sun Yijia. Like a woman, she cared about her face very much, even more than many people. Even though her mother had told her that there wouldn't be any obvious scars on her face, Ruan Fengfei, who pursued perfection in everything, couldn't tolerate the slightest flaw. Covering her face, Ruan Fengfei smiled eerily. A match made in heaven? Whether it's a match made in heaven or not, it's up to me. What Ruan Fengfei hated even more was not the amount of gifts given to Jingwan, but Li Hongyuan's personal involvement in this matter. Ruan Fengfei felt that the first time she saw Luo Jingwan, she was abnormally hateful, and it wasn't without reason. Which family is having a banquet recently? Ruan Fengfei asked coldly. Although it wasn't that she hadn't seen Ruan Fengfei like this before, but every time she saw her, it made people shudder with fear. Miss, the 17th of May is Gong Qin Wangfei's birthday. According to tradition, there will be a banquet. Tell my mother that I want to attend. Luo Jingwan was Jin Qinhuang's current fiancée. Although she was also waiting to be married, it was still early. There was no reason for her not to attend her future sister-in-law's birthday banquet. Yes. The people who served Ruan Fengfei never had the right to make suggestions, let alone the right to speak. What she decided, others only needed to obey. There were only a few days left before Gong Qin Wangfei's birthday banquet, so the Luo family naturally received the invitation early. Jingwan even received one alone. Later, Jingwan also learned that Ruan Fengfei would also go. Jingwan could roughly guess her purpose. Well, Ruan Fengfei was not afraid of being pointed out by others when she went out, so how could Jingwan be afraid of facing her? On that day, Jingwan went out in a splendid dress. Compared with the dress that Great Elder Princess prepared for her on the day when she recognized Great Elder Princess as her adoptive mother, Jingwan's dress was not inferior. She took 2 of the 4 maids, plus Bai Xiao, Sister He, and Mammy Gong. This time, she went out as a guest, which was probably the most grand occasion. Even if she was said to be a fox pretending to be a tiger as soon as she became Jin Qinhuang's fiancée, she didn't hesitate to do so. Madame Luo was very satisfied with Jingwan's dress. It was natural for her to rise with the tide. If she still wore the same dress as before, she might be said to be narrow-minded, even if this characteristic could never be found on Jingwan. Sitting in a small sedan chair, Lin Mingya entered the second gate of Prince Gong's mansion and met the Gong Qin Wangfei, who personally greeted her. Although it was not the first time they met, it was the first time that they got along as future sisters-in-law. It was said that Li Hongyuan's behavior made Jingwan hate him. Most of them were the princesses of Li Hongyuan's brothers. Because of her father, the Gong Qin Wangfei lived very unscrupulously in the Gong Qin Wangfu. Even though she had been married for many years, she still had some of the spoiled and unruly attitude she had before she was married. There wasn't even the slightest bit of sorrow on her face. The Gong Qin Wangfei wanted to give Jingwan a show of strength. First, she wanted to suppress her aura. However, the idea was good, but in the face of the smiling Jingwan, her aura was useless. When she saw the people Jingwan brought, she even suspected that Jingwan was here to give her a show of strength. Since the Gong Qin Wangfei did not achieve her goal, she did not do anything unnecessary. If she went too far, she would lose her face. Her gaze fell on Sun Yijia's face. Yijia is becoming more and more beautiful. This makeup is really good. Sun Yijia nodded and accepted her praise as a matter of course. As for whether it was true or false, who cared? The Gong Qin Wangfei covered her mouth. Yijia's temperament is still the same. She hasn't changed at all. Everything is going well in the in-laws' house. There's nothing to change. Sun Yijia said indifferently. That's true. But I heard that the Luo family's 3rd young master loves his first wife. He doesn't even look at the other women outside. Outside, there were rumors that she was a rouge tiger, but it had already reached her ears. Sun Yijia nodded. Wangfei Nyongyang is also not far off. If they were really talking about rouge tigers, the number 1 was really not her, Sun Yijia. Sure enough, the Gong Qin Wangfei shut her mouth. She took care of the Gong prince. Even if there were women with official status in the house, she would not easily let them get close to the Gong prince. Even if she had already given birth to a legitimate son, other women would occasionally be taken advantage of by her, but the next day, she would send people to force them to prevent pregnancy. It was rumored that there was once a pregnant concubine who was beaten to death by her. Without waiting for them to enter the courtyard, the people of the Ruan family arrived. Seeing Ruan Fengfei's face covered, many people whispered, "Ah, she really hurt her face." It must be said that as the capital's twin beauties, both had disfigured faces. Shouldn't they be sympathizing with each other? Unfortunately, these 2 people didn't even make eye contact. However, Ruan Fengfei glanced at Sun Yijia. That strange but beautiful makeup made her eyes darken. Even if many people compared the two of them, Ruan Fengfei didn't take Sun Yijia seriously. However, after a similar experience, the other party didn't have any effect. Instead, she was getting better and better. Ruan Fengfei was like a clown who couldn't see through, no matter how she thought about it. It was very unpleasant. Jingwan moved a step, blocking Ruan Fengfei's line of sight on Sun Yijia's face. Miss Ruan is well. Miss Luo is well. It was a very peaceful scene, but it made people feel like sparks were flying everywhere. It was really strange. The Gong Qin Wang Fei didn't know what was going on, but her heart couldn't help but beat faster. Today's feeling wasn't right. Welcoming the two families to the back garden, it was the season of blooming flowers. No matter which family's courtyard it was, there was a scenery to see. When they faintly heard voices coming from the garden, their group met another person. Greetings to the Gong Prince. Greetings to the Jin Prince. The Gong Prince called for them to be excused. Then, everyone saw Li Hongyuan walk straight to Ruan Fengfei. What was he doing? The others couldn't help but look at Jingwan. Before, there were rumors that the Jin Prince cared a lot about the Luo San Gunyang, but now there was a good show to watch. Ruan Fengfei's eyes were watery as she slightly raised her head to look at Li Hongyuan. Jingwan looked at her. Sure enough, this pervert really liked the Jin Prince. Li Hongyuan suddenly reached out and took off Ruan Fengfei's veil. The deep affection in Ruan Fengfei's eyes quickly retreated, and she subconsciously reached out to cover her face. Li Hongyuan's other hand reached out and blocked her hand. Ben Wang heard that you were disfigured, so he wanted to see it with his own eyes to see if it was true. This person became ugly, so her brain doesn't work well? If it doesn't work, then learn from others. Next time when you go out, remember to cover it up. It's so ugly, it's not good to scare people. He threw the veil on her face and turned to leave. Digression, https://www.yangguiwaiwo.com/11/11807/6653104. HTML chapter error. Click here to report, registration free. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.yangguiwaiwo.com. Biku Gu mobile version reading website, yangguiwaiwo.com. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.